Ahoy, ye lubbers and scallywags! Welcome back to part 2 of a debate review that we started last week over on Mark's channel, who, as always, joins me from the opposite side of the planet. Spooky, witchcraft, sorcery, something like that. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Very well. Very well. Tired. That's okay. No, I'm well. How are you? How are you doing? Holding up?
Pluses and minuses.
Hmm.
Yeah, I continue
Very
to survive.
good. Very nautical introduction. So ahoy, I guess. Ahoy. Ahoy.
Yeah.
Ahoy, me hearties.
Oh,
I've
goodness.
noticed that your
Yeah.
theme has gotten more and more piratical over the last month or so. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against it.
I mean, I've always leaned pretty heavily in that direction, but yeah, it's
Oh, fair
definitely
enough.
so. I don't know if you caught it because it was I have one of my queer space pirate flags, and it was on the void behind me until a couple of days
Okay.
ago, and then I had to record a serious message, so I took it down and it's over there now.
Oh, what was the message?
It was so TLDR.
Okay.
There've been a lot of issues with grown adults not liking grown adults of a certain flavor. What else is new here in the US? And at the moment, it happens to be teachers who happen to be trans people. People are
Yes.
showing up at school board meetings and throwing toddler hissy fits like the grown adults they are to protect the children.
I
And it's
saw your thing on that. Yes. Not
yeah,
necessarily
well,
trans because
another one
those
happened.
another one. Oh,
Mhm.
because that the one that I saw on your channel, they didn't even know if she was trans or he was trans or they were trans. Apparently they used she her pronouns while at school.
Mhm.
But apparently the thing was that they were saying that they were non-binary, but they used she her at school, probably because of laws that say you've got to use, or regulations that you've got to use the pronouns that were assigned to you at birth. So it's probably somebody who was born female that then
Mhm.
became non-binary, but is using the assigned gender at birth to be for convenience. So, like, it's not at that point, you're just picking on some poor person, not even for the reason that you're getting, like, oh, wow, just ridiculous. Just
It's
ridiculous.
many layers of messed up
Mm,
in
yeah.
oh goodness. But this second one happened to be in Iowa. I keep wanting to say Ohio, and I don't know why. Iowa, which is
Look, I don't know the
significant
difference. You
for
can just
two
lie to
reasons.
me. I won't know.
It's all good.
Yeah.
The first
Ohio,
is
Iowa, it's all the same to me.
I know it's somewhere in the middle there with
And every
corn and
single
Amish
every
people.
single Ohio person and Iowan just clicks off. Thanks. Thanks. You're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, the first reason is that Iowa became the first state in the US to remove civil rights protections for people. Oof. They passed a law last year
Ooh.
specifically removing trans people from the civil rights laws. There were protections for trans people, but they removed them. So it pertains directly to that teacher's case. And the second is that Iowa has had exactly this problem before in 1946.
Mm.
So, 80 years ago this year, they had an identical kerfuffle about hiring the first Black public school teacher.
Right.
And it was all, got to protect the children and don't agree with the
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle and against my
Yep.
biblical values and all the same things.
And yeah, but then it was the gays, like we can't have a gay teacher. They're going to prey on the children. And it's like, yeah, people are preying on children, but it's not the gays. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just the teachers that you
It,
already have. It's
any kind of scapegoat,
exactly,
and it seems to
exactly.
be different. In 1956 it was atheists, in 1946 it was Black teachers, in
Really?
1936 it was immigrants, in 1926 it was Catholics, in 1916 it was women.
Oh, yes. Can't have
you
women
know
in the schools. Whatever will our schools become if women are allowed to teach? Holy
Like,
crap.
it's all, and so not to spoil my own video, it is a short one, but the general
Right.
message is that it's the same irrational
Yes.
hate generation after generation, and it has never once been warranted. So maybe teaching in Iowa is pointless because the people refuse to learn. Luke, however, is learning good. He's sending us jewels for gold coins. Jewels and gold coins, very on theme.
I don't
Ahoy,
know what
me hearties.
I probably feel like I should, because things and stuff. I don't know, but thanks, Luke. You are an absolute champ. Absolute champ. I
Hell
don't
yeah.
know, but it sounds
Treasure.
Yar!
I know. I need
I'm
a treasure
hang on.
background or
When is
something.
the International Talk Like a Pirate Day?
It's in
I
September, I think.
yeah, September. It's coming up, right? So I have fond memories of International Talk Like a Pirate Day because I had the best game of pool I've ever played on International Talk Like a Pirate Day in a university pub. You guys don't use pub, do you? You don't know what pub is? It's just a tavern, a drinking hole, a inn. I don't know. What do you guys call it? A establishment with alcoholic beverages that you hang out in.
Usually a bar, but there are
A bar.
taverns.
There
There's
you
a
go.
few places that
There
go
you
by
go.
pubs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably more a bar. You know, I'd probably described it as a bar. Gotcha. Okay, so that's a pub
Of all the
here. I don't
lawyers.
know why. Right. Okay. But I played this magnificent game of pool using the curve on the end of a fake plastic pirate sword as the rest for the pool cue, and I was pretty hammered and absolutely just decimated, like this poor man who was just astonished that I used a plastic sword to beat his ass in pool. Never had a better pool game than that.
Maybe you should try it more often.
I don't think so. I think that's enough, Zane. I can rest on my laurels. I really can.
That's fair.
That
When
was
you
a
try to
wild.
repeat things, sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. The very first time I ever shot darts was when some of my older friends dragged me into a bar. I was too young to drink, so there was nothing to do but play darts.
Yeah,
And
but
so
that's like under 21 over there, right?
yeah.
Okay, so explain this to me. Sorry to interrupt, but explain this to me. How is it that you can vote and decide on the trajectory of the entire country, but you can't have the responsibility to have a drink? Like, explain that to me. I don't understand.
It's very contentious.
Yeah.
So,
I can
in the
imagine.
1960s and 70s, when we were doing the Vietnam War, there were a bunch of people trying to raise the drinking age, but there were a bunch of people saying, if you can go fight and die for your country, you deserve a damn beer. And so they kept it at 18 for a while. But after the war ended, I'm not sure
Oh.
exactly what happened, but at some point they raised it to 21 because you're mature enough to vote, play the lottery, sign student loans, sign a mortgage that you'll be paying for the rest of your life, but you're not mature enough to handle a strawberry daiquiri
Oh.
or something. They're trying to make it 25 now.
Really? Interesting.
I suspect that there's that I can't think of the name of the group, but around the same time we were fighting for women's suffrage, there was another group trying to just ban alcohol entirely, and
Well, they
they
tried
eventually
that.
did. Yeah, we had a
Yeah, that
prohibition for a while. It didn't work
did
out
not
so
go well.
good,
Yeah, no,
but
it didn't.
there's echoes of their sentiments still floating around,
Yes.
especially when people talk about raising the drinking age again.
Well, I think I take a more moderate approach. I think there's a balance to be struck because it wasn't until I had met some people with who had struggled with alcoholism that I was aware of the sheer amount of marketing and, the pressure that's been, peer pressure, the amount of marketing that's everywhere, it's shoved in everybody's faces. You just don't realize it, and for somebody that's gone through that, it's rough, right? Because everything is telling you to do that. So, it wasn't until so I think there should be a lot stricter laws regarding, selling drinks that are basically lolly water to kids, basically, and things like that, and advertising and things like that. But at the same time, you've really got to give people, and I think that the government should have more power to sort of go, well, you've got a problem with this substance, we're not going to allow you to have it, like just a registration thing that, hey, because like some people have a real problem with it and they need help with it, but they won't ever get it because the services aren't there. And, the government really wants to ban stuff rather than, leave people to have the freedom of choice and help them out if they need help. So, yeah.
Much emphasis on authoritarianism over, helping people. We can't have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You must obey, though, or you'll be sent to CCOT or something. So,
unless you're a small country in the Middle East with a shared heritage of religion, then you get a lot of help. Then you get a lot of help.
Yes, more than
All
our
help.
own citizens.
Absolutely.
I got a letter day before yesterday saying that virtually everyone is getting kicked off of Medicaid. If you stay on it, you have to magically become undisabled and work like half of full time, which is technically part time, but it's like it's. I'm like, what sense does this make? If people who are disabled could work, they'd be working, and if you do work, then you get kicked off anyway because now you make too much money, and it just
right.
So
yeah, I don't think that
yeah.
Disability is the life of luxury that some people think it is. Like they absolutely struggle, and it. I just this mentality is just appalling kind of thing. But I've noticed that people that argue for this kind of thing, they shut up real quick when they're in that circumstance. This is what I don't understand. When they're in the circumstance, they want the help and assistance from. It's like these farmers who are sort of like, oh, we'll vote in Trump kind of thing. I hate people getting handouts, and it's like, oh, what happened to my handout? It's like, do you even listen to yourself? Do you even
No.
like It's wild, like, and people do need help. That's what the government's supposed to be for, not promoting the interests of corporations around the world. That it's supposed to be there for the people, of the people, by the people.
Nope,
Just
it's a
saying.
corporation now, and we have to cut everyone's health and assistance and medical subsidies and whatnot because Israel really needs that money way more than your children do.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we better get on with it. That's enough bitching about America for one day. Look, Australia's not that much better. I got to say, like, we're marginally better, but not, they're still talking about cutting people off. And, I think that they decided that, like, if you could get up out of your wheelchair, then technically you weren't disabled kind of thing and in a wheelchair. And it's like, you do realize that some of these people, like, they can stand and maybe walk a little bit, but they still need the wheelchair. Like, what? Like,
I had a period where the chair I'm in right now has wheels on it. And there's some days when I'd be able to lift myself into and out of the chair, but only as far as my damn bed, which is right behind this curtain. It's infuriating. Scott asks, can't YouTubers count as full-time, half-time independent self-employment? If you classify yourself as self-employed, then you have to meet an income minimum, which is enough money to get you kicked off of, or at least reduced assistance or some crazy shit like that. So in theory, if my YouTube channel earned enough, then I could stay on and keep having medical care. But A, that will never happen. And B, if it did happen, then I'd have to worry about hitting the second cap where I get kicked off entirely, because it's like a very narrow window by design, of course.
No, I refute that. Let's make it happen tonight. It's happening. All right. Like just you got to believe. You've got to believe. Have faith, Ember. Faith.
I know.
Remember,
I don't have enough faith to be a capitalist, I guess. I don't know.
The Lord will provide. The Lord.
I mean, he's done a bang up job so far. My goodness.
Works in mysterious
in January,
ways,
we came close. We came really, really close to.
Okay.
So the line to stay on Medicaid. Now, I'm always confusing Medicaid and Medicare, and that's also by design. They named them that way on purpose. But the line to stay on happens to be just under what it takes to pay my monthly rent. And in January, between this channel and Astral Pride, we were within a hair's breadth of covering my rent with my online work.
There you go.
But we didn't quite make it. And that was by far the best month I've ever had. Like orders of magnitude. So,
right.
I mean, maybe in another 6 years. Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just, yeah. Well, let's have fun anyway. I mean, we
yeah.
Let's just have some fun anyway.
What could possibly be more fun than Low Bar Bill?
Low Bar Bill, looking a little weathered, but still hanging in there. I really liked the first part of this. I mean, Malpass really got into. I feel like, you know, and I was thinking about this, right? Like, it's like that Bill hasn't thought about this kind of objection before. It's kind of weird. He doesn't really have a response because Malpass was sort of saying, hey, the sort of nothing that we're sort of saying into existence, we've never really seen that kind of thing. We have things that become other things, but not really something beginning from anything. And so when you're talking about the universe beginning, it's completely different than everything we've ever seen before, whether it is by God or whether it is a change of quantum state or whatever the case may be. That is a different category. And Bill's like, you know, I haven't really thought about addressing that particular objection. It's like, really? I mean, don't get me wrong, Malpass is sort of summing up, and he's written a paper about it. It's very, professionally done and everything, but it's hardly the first time this kind of objection's been raised to the Kalam.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe Bill's been in such a bubble all these years that this is the first time it's come to his attention, because, you know, unless someone with a PhD says it, why does he care? Unless it's Paulogia, or how does he say it? Paulogia.
Paulogia. Yes, absolutely Paulogia.
We love the Paulogia. That's the second time today he's come up. What is up with that guy?
I wasn't here for the first one, obviously. Maybe I don't know.
It's I was visiting Godless Granny's channel earlier. We were talking about paleoastronomy, and it was really fun. And somehow we got talking about other YouTubers, and Logic came up, and so we discussed some things about the way Logic approaches apologists and so forth, and then contrasted it. I brought up Paulogia. I was like, to contrast it and be like, you know, Paul has a sense of humor, but he also takes the work very seriously. You know, he'll go point by point in a very logical, organized format, and Logic will just yes and right into absurdity. And it's, you know, it's fun.
Well, I think both are valid. Approaches. You know, if you are doing a sort of reductio ad absurdum, I think that Logic is really good at that. like putting in a contrary position into it and just seeing how absurd it gets, because some of the things he comes up with is really good. So I think both are absolutely valid. I do prefer Paulogia or Paulogia as you said. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who Logic is. Watch, we find out someday that they're both just Paul. Like, that's why we never that would be a twist. But like, I don't know. I've like had some sort of contact with Paul. You may recall my first year on YouTube. Paul at the end of every year, he makes a list of new channels to go check out, and we made the list.
Nice.
So, there was that. I've seen Shannon Q wander through the chat from time to time, particularly when we do something that's actually, up her alley, like the history of psychology or something, or thumbs. No, wait. Thank you, Luke, for 10 jewels, saying
thanks,
thumbs
Luke.
up. Yeah. More treasure.
Arr, that
I don't
give us
know.
that booty. That
I
shiny
have no
booty.
idea what 10 jewels translates into, but it sounds like treasure,
Okay.
so I'm all for it.
It is treasure. Look, if a jewel's not a treasure, what is, quite frankly?
Right?
Right. So look, it gives me a chance to say booty, which will probably get this thing demonetized because it's like in the first half hour or something. I don't know how the algorithm works. It's in the first half hour, and there was a new moon yesterday. And a groundhog came out of its hole 2 weeks ago. That's apparently how the algorithm works in the way it strikes channels. I don't know. All right, basically the YouTube algorithm is God at this point in time. It's mysterious. No one understands how it works, and it can absolutely ruin lives if you cross it. It's absolutely God at this point. Absolutely.
It is ineffable and smitey.
Very smitey. The algorithm is a jealous algorithm.
It's true. I hear you've been on that other app.
The app that should not be named. That's right. Moloch.
Oh, goodness. All right. So let's see what
you've been on the Baal app. Yes. I will smite thee.
Yes, sacrificing children. I guess
so.
Sometimes every analogy runs out at some point. It's fine. Okay, so Bill, he's about to say something.
He is.
Apparently. I can't quite remember what it's in response to. So let's jump back a tiny bit here. Oh, what a face.
That's a yeah. Oh, got me. Yeah, that's an objection.
Yeah.
It's, I find all sorts of things absurd, like traffic and people that I bump into on the street. That doesn't mean that they're impossible. I'm using the word differently to you, but I'm not sure how it's a litmus test for impossibility to say that it's absurd. If there was an infinite hotel, that's what it would be like. You'd be able to shuffle guests around. I mean, what's the problem?
Yeah, now that's not in dispute.
Okay,
so I don't.
Hilbert's Hotel.
Yes. I don't think that absurd things are impossible. I think there's a lot of things which are absurd, right? Like, so absurdity is kind of like one of those terms that is tossed around, and people will say, "Well, that's absurd. Your example's absurd. Your thought experiment's absurd." Just because something's absurd doesn't make it not possible. Like, a lot of the laws of physics, like, really absurd just sort of means counterintuitive. It doesn't really have any standing to say something. It's absurd that you can pilot a wind powered vehicle faster than the wind.
Yeah,
but that is true. It's wild. It's absurd. Like, this is the thing. Absurdity, illogical is different than absurd. And illogical things are impossible, right? Especially things that are logically contradictory are impossible, but not absurd things.
The dictionary is being very helpful again. Merriam-Webster
Okay.
says the absurdity is the quality or state of being absurd.
Yeah, so that's called I forgot. I think it's a self-referential definition. So people are like, oh, you can't have a definition that has that word in it. Wrong. You can actually. So when you have the word in that definition, really what they're pointing to is the normative definition. And by normative, we just mean the widely accepted version of that word. So what it's pointing to is really what people generally understand absurd to be. So somebody made a point that religion, you can't have a definition of religion with religion in it. Yes, you can. All it's doing is referencing the generally understood meaning of the word. Sorry, that's sort of how it works. There's a term for it, and I can't remember.
Pesky language with all the things. But yeah, we'll run into people all the time, the definitionists. They're like, oh, that's a circular definition. Circular definition is not the same as a circular argument. Just because a thing is a circle doesn't mean it's wrong. Observe planet of your choice.
Well, all definitions are tautologies, right? So a tautology is basically something that says exactly the same thing, right? Like it's basically an argument that says exactly the same thing. Definitions are always tautologies. They're always like, this thing equals this. Well, yes, it's supposed to be the same thing. It's a definition. Whether they're circular, I don't think so. Like circular, no.
I don't know. I don't think the definitionalists make a whole lot of sense in the first place. But what does make sense is a super chat from Luke.
Nice.
Who says it's 2 pounds and says pesky language.
That was smooth. Look, the English language is one of the wildest languages out there, and not only because it has some insane rules, it also just it's the pirate of languages. It will just steal everything from every other language.
I mean, we do that with artifacts too, or at least the English do that with art. Have you seen the British Museum?
Oh, yes.
Like we just steal everything not nailed down, and sometimes the things that are.
Yeah. No, the English definitely did a bit of thieving of cultural artifacts over the course of their history.
Liberating,
yes. For the Queen. Oh, it's a king now. Hold on, it's a king now. So apparently, I mean, look, my country still has a king. That is ridiculous. That's who I might add has power to do things as long as he promises not to do things, and it's just the most ridiculous situation. I don't know
absurdity.
How this came about.
There we go.
Yeah, it's absurd. It doesn't mean it's impossible.
Right, he can do a thing once.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
That if there were an infinite hotel, this is what it would be like. Right. We agree on that. But that's not enough to show that this hotel is something that's metaphysically impossible. And I think the point has to come at which the agglomeration of these sorts of crazy situations just becomes intolerable or backbreaking. Now, for me, it comes very quickly, as I explained right at the beginning of the podcast today. If I imagine an infinite library of books with an infinite number of books on the shelves, and the books are only 2 colors, red and black, and they alternate red and black, red and black, red and black, red and black, I can see how someone could say, well, there are just as many red books as there are black books. They're both infinite. But how could it be the case that there are as many red books as there are all of the red books plus all of the black books? It just seems crazy.
Because that's the way
Bill doesn't
infinity
understand
works.
infinities.
Yeah.
Oops.
Because basically the way that math with infinity works, it basically breaks that our usual intuitive conventions of how it works. But I don't know if infinity can actually exist in the real world. We can treat it as a like an irrational number, right? There's irrational numbers. They can't exist in the square root of -1 kind of thing. Like it's not a real number, okay? Because math is describing something in the real world, okay, usually. But what you've got to remember about it is that there are formulas which don't describe anything in the real world, right? Like, so if you have, say, the formula for a parabola, for instance, like the quadratic equation kind of thing, x squared plus 2x plus, y kind of thing, right? That will describe a parabola that may exist in the real world. That might be the arc of, what's that arc thing? Is it St. Louis or something? The arch or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. There's a big old arch.
Right. That may describe something in the real world, but there are functions and formulas that don't describe anything in the real world, like the square root of -1. Okay. It doesn't describe anything. So the way I look at it, math is a schema. It's a sort of language. It's a system of that basically models the real world, and we can use it to get expected results out of modeling the real world. But what you've got to remember is that infinity may not be in the real world, right? And I've sort of outlined this before. The problem with finding an infinity is you never know when you've found something that is infinite. And my example is sort of, pi, for instance. We kind of assume that goes on to infinity, right? But we don't know for sure, because when, we do these calculations, which is just the, diameter divided by the circumference kind of thing, or the radius divided by the circumference divided by the radius. But, we don't know if it's infinite, because we use supercomputers to get to X decimal places. How do you know when you can't reach the end? You will never know when you can't reach the end. So I don't, I don't have a problem if an infinite thing exists in the real world. Like, it's not like I'm saying, oh, it doesn't exist in the real world. I'm just questioning whether we can know it or not. And maybe it can't exist in the real world. We don't know. But just because math represents something, just because we have something that is mathematically valid, like an infinity in math, doesn't mean that it actually exists in the real world or anything beyond a conceptual form.
Yeah, there's a lot of, well, I don't know. There are instances where we find weird concepts popping up, things that we thought wouldn't exist in nature, like the golden ratio for a long time was considered to be one of those things. Like, we would find close-ish sort of things, like proportions in human physiology and whatnot. But then we started finding like plants that use it in seed distribution or something. And we're like, look at that being all real and whatnot. And we thought it was just an abstract. Apparently there's uses. We don't know why those things get selected for by evolution somehow. Maybe it's an efficiency thing, but it shows up from time to time.
Well, it's less prevalent than you think. A lot of people point to the golden ratio. So that's phi, PHI. It's the golden ratio, right? Like, and people point to these spirals and stuff. And apparently some of those are pretty loosely put on there. But yeah, it is a common ratio that sort of keeps appearing, kind of thing. And it is probably that it's, it just happens to be efficient. So things will turn out that way. But apparently, I thought that was everywhere. Like, people have said, oh, it's everywhere you look at, but they're sort of applying it to things that aren't very precise. And
they're ignoring everything it doesn't apply to. It's, doing the sharpshooter thing. Like the lights behind the people on the video here. There's no evidence of spirals. I mean, hell, half the people who mention it call it a Fibonacci spiral, and it's not really how that works either. But details. So, fun fact, random, tangential, and all sorts of things. That reminds me, did I do the new thing? I may have done the new thing.
Oh, something's
please.
new. I'm here
There
for it. Let's do it.
there it is.
Okay.
We have a new tangent.
Woo! Oh, I'm here for it.
Yay!
Awesome.
It's the image of Artemis 2 blasting off tangentially from the Earth with an Earth
There you
photo
go.
from Artemis 2 on a fucking rainbow. I'm very amused. I blame Helen Green and Tommy from the Humanity because that
Often.
they inspired that whole thing. So
I
now we have
often
a
blame
friend.
them.
Yes.
I often blame both of them. Yes.
Absolutely. But now we get to do the new tangent. Before I do that, though, Majestic Beck sends 5 jewels with a go team. Yay. Thank you so
Go
much. Beck.
team.
Appreciate it. I didn't want to completely miss it. The St. Louis Arch isn't actually a parabola. It's similar, but they
Okay.
used a special thingy called a quaternary, which
Ooh.
has its own formula having to do
Okay.
with the specific weight of the structure being built and the local strength of gravity.
Nice.
And so it's neat. So the
Yeah.
equation is y equals a cosine h parentheses x over a, and
Nice.
a has, oh shit, where did I put it? It's a constant value equal to the horizontal tension divided by the linear density and gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Fun.
Yeah.
Like a laughing disco. We're getting lots of jewels today. I'm gonna need a new graphic of like jewels raining down or something. I don't know. I'm not gonna get too hung up on that, but thank you, Beck. Oh goodness, I'm silly already, and we're not even an hour in. This bodes well.
Yeah.
To me, and yet, as you say, that's how it would be if there were an infinite library. And so you have these situations like this that, for me, just become intolerable. And I just hope that my reader or listener will find himself coming to that point as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but then it just sounds like an
So spot that fallacy. That is a appeal to incredulity, is what that is. And Bill should know that he's not actually giving a reason, a logical reason why it's impossible. He's just saying, well, I don't find that plausible. I'm incredulous that could be the case. And I think that I think that's sort of saying, okay, fair enough. I find, I don't think that I would point to, hey, we haven't found anything that is infinite in the real world, and seem to be having difficulty finding it, kind of thing. So I just sort of saying, hey, that's absurd. It isn't an argument. All it's doing is just saying, hey, that's counterintuitive. Yeah, okay. A lot of things are.
I mean, he is an apologist, and to be an apologist, your entire thing is, I don't like not knowing something, therefore God. I get to invent the thing that makes me feel better. Logic. Not philosophy, though. That's awful philosophy. This is why Bill, for all his haughtiness about I'll only speak to someone with a terminal degree, he's among philosophers, he's kind of a joke. He's the silly Billy, as it were.
I don't think so. I think that, I mean, to me, he's not the best. To some, he's amazing. But then again, to some people, Kent Hovind is amazing. And I can't work that one out.
He's tenacious. Maybe I'm being too charitable. Like, honestly, that man does not deserve anyone's good intentions or best efforts or any kind of grace. But it isn't because he deserves it that we do that kind of thing. It's because we do that kind of thing because that's the kind of people we are, I suppose.
Fair enough.
I dislike Bill to a terminal degree. A PhD and build this thing.
So, yeah, I totally get it. I think that Bill is sort of, he seems to be, to me, a relic I don't mean that harshly, but I mean he's a relic of the time when, Christian thinkers were on the cutting edge and atheists weren't allowed to play ball, kind of thing. So he would, a lot of the time, I mean, people like C.S. Lewis and stuff being held up as these amazing thinkers, kind of thing. And I think that a lot of them were, in a Christian dominated society, were given a lot of leeway because they were Christian and espoused these ideas which were on brand for Christianity. But we've sort of leveled the playing field a bit more to the point where atheist thinkers, Islamic thinkers, all of these different people can sort of, talk and have a voice. And from no small part from the internet, and their ideas just aren't as weighty as they used to be. And I think that Bill has to deal with that in some way, which, as far as I can see, he's really not dealing very well at all. Because just saying something sounds absurd is not addressing anything.
Bill is a trip. So he, as you may be aware, he has 2 doctorates actually. He talked about it a little bit in the first part over on Mark's channel in the very beginning, but he calls it a PhD in philosophy in 1977, but it's actually a PhD in the philosophy of religion, which isn't quite the same thing. It's like what's his name? The guy who looks like a Romulan. With the Discovery Institute. In any case, he has a PhD in the philosophy of science. He's not a scientist, and he's not a philosopher. It's the philosophy of science. And similar thing with Bill. So if you want to be technical, he's a theologian, not a philosopher. And his second doctorate is in theology, but he's open about that being theological.
Yeah. No, I think philosophy of religion, I think there is room there for, I really want to push back on that, Ember. I do think philosophy of religion does deal with philosophy kind of thing. I just think that too many people go through philosophy of religion, and during their course, they will look into, modal logic and, fallacy stuff and logical thinking. And then, they'll do something theological with it afterwards and forget everything they ever learnt and just do the theology thing. Because guess what? Theology is a lot easier than philosophy, and a lot more profitable as well.
You have to be a lot less stringent for sure. Yeah, it's no question it's philosophy related, and it certainly has some of the tools of philosophy, but it's not like, I don't know. I don't want to be a purist about it, because there's people who are like, you're not a scientist, you're a physicist, or you're a chemist, or you're a biologist. Yes, but that's part of science.
Yeah. But along the same lines, if you do philosophy of science, you're not a scientist, you're a philosopher, right? I think it's along the same lines. Like if you do philosophy of science, you're really working in the philosophy realm, even though it is related to science, rather than you're working in science and it's related to philosophy.
Which I don't think you can actually escape because of the way our academic system is set up. Like,
what do you mean?
Well, for one thing, to be a PhD level scientist, you need a PhD, and that's a doctor of philosophy. Like, philosophy is, at least to some extent, baked in. Another is, in order to do science, you have to presuppose, if you will, a certain number of philosophical worldviews, for lack of a better term, like naturalism and uniformitarianism and so forth. And without those, it's true, you don't need the terms to do science. You just have to hypothesis, observation, experiment, design. Just do the steps. You don't have to buy into any particular philosophy, I suppose. You just do the thing. It can be entirely practical. But to get anywhere in academia, to get recognition with the piece of paper, the receipt saying you paid for the courses, you need to go through the philosophical steps.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I get that. But it's more like, I mean, a PhD, it sort of is, usually when I look at PhDs in sort of IT and computing and stuff, usually people are only sort of given a PhD when they do some sort of novel research. So I think
Yes.
that even while it does mean Doctor of Philosophy, I get what you mean. Yeah, yeah. But I don't think that is what it is anymore. I think it's like, the same as people saying, well, science means knowledge because it comes from the Latin term scientia, and it's like, okay, that's where the
Yeah.
term came from. And so PhD is from the Latin philosophe doctor, right? Like meaning a doctor of philosophy. But I don't think that's what it means anymore. I think a PhD is somebody who has contributed novel research to their field, and that may be entirely technical, for instance. It may not be any philosophy, but maybe a new way to do a solar collector or something. It's hardly philosophy. So I think we've got to move away from this term meaning, like, because you meet those people, mostly philosophers, right, who was like, oh, well, everything is philosophy when you get down. Science is philosophy. Sport is philosophy. Everything.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, settle down. I know you're doing first year philosophy, but calm your tits, all right? Like, seriously.
Listen, my
Can I
tits
say
have-
that at this point?
You know what? Never mind.
Look, I don't know, all right? I just hope I haven't the stream was probably demonetized from the moment we got on. Let's face it.
It's okay though, because we have people throwing jewels at us, like Luke sending a treat.
Yay!
Thank you. It shows up as like a little dog bone looking thing, which I'm not sure how to take
Oh,
that,
look.
but I appreciate treats. So yeah.
And then Luke does a pun on their own name. Lucrative Pursuits. Hey, treats and puns. What a day. What a time to be alive.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. You probably didn't mean it to be a pun. It is now.
We're working with it. But I've noticed a similar thing with capitalism enthusiasts. They will point out how everything is capitalism. Like ecology is just environmental capitalism. Yeah. And space travel is geometric capitalism. And you can reframe anything in the terms of whatever lens it is you're trying to view the world through.
Yeah, and you
really
get first year genetic students going that everything is genetic, like all behavior's genetic, everything's genetic. I had this argument, like with this, hanging out kind of thing. I may have been dressed like a pirate at the time. That may be the case, but that was sort of saying, oh, all stuff is genetic, and my mother was a psychologist, which. Psychology, they call it rats and stats, basically. It's behavioral stuff, right? And so, you're sort of going, well, no, not everything. There is stuff that's behavioral, how you're brought up kind of thing. And they're like, no, it's everything is genetic kind of. It's not. It's definitely not, okay? But it's sort of the case that when you're a student and you're doing some sort of arts degree, you are immersed in that world so much that the first year student will go, oh, this is everything. Everything relates to my field. My field is everything. And as you go through the years of studying it, you're like, oh, yeah, it's valuable, but not, genetics is important. It's such a major factor in so many things, but it doesn't determine everything.
As a person who's been hacking my biology with hormones, can confirm. But you make an accurate point. As my first actual academic discipline, my non-religious foray into post-secondary education was in physics. And first year astrophysics, all the students literally say to each other, it really is the study of everything, because everything is covered by astrophysics except psychology. But we don't talk about that.
To intuition, right?
Yes, it is.
But then what if your reader doesn't share the intuition?
Well, then he needs to reform his intuition.
Why should they? Why don't you reform your intuition? I mean, if you study the mathematics...
Or you could, convince them with arguments and evidence instead of saying, well, I'm right, get good, noob,
Yeah,
What is it?
So this is the thing, like, and intuition is great. Don't get me wrong; it's a very useful tool, but we got to recognize the limitations of those tools. I mean, physicists are. I love the physics lectures that they do, where they'll show the students and then go, "What happens next?" And what happens is so counterintuitive. Like, it just doesn't, like, what you think will happen and what actually happens makes no sense whatsoever. Like, there was one where they were spinning a wheel and then, like, they were holding it sideways, and what happens when we let go? And everyone's like, oh, we'll just fall down. And the wheel just remains upright on this rope because that's how the physics works. But it doesn't look right. It feels completely wrong. They're doing some physics magic up there. And,
It's true. It's magic.
things are counterintuitive. I'm really sorry, but they are. Like, I'm sorry. Relativity is counterintuitive. Completely counterintuitive. And also happens to be true.
As far as we can tell.
Yeah, so I'd love if Alex did bring up some counterintuitive things here, like, the theory of general relativity. Completely counterintuitive. It breaks your brain. It hurts. It hurts your non-existent soul. It's so counterintuitive. And there's things out there that are like that. That's, if you just appeal to intuition, I mean, what are you doing?
Why are you even a philosopher if it's all about intuition? Like, you're supposed to be like, let's think this through all the way through and consider all the other viewpoints. Nope, I'm going with my vibes, bestie.
Yeah. And what happens if you can't manage to get your vibes to jump that bar? What do you do, Ember?
You gotta have faith.
No, you lower the bar. You lower the bar.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm a little dancey today.
But hey, look, valid answer as well. I'm not sure if faith will get you over that bar. You got to lower the bar for your faith to make that jump. Faith don't have big hops. I'll put it that way. All right. I think I said that right.
Take the bar, bury it in your backyard. No one will ever find it again.
Yeah.
Like Jesus. Buried somewhere and no one will ever find it again.
Allegedly.
I'm so mean.
And understand the concept, and this is what the hotel would be like. You should update your intuitions to now fit in line. It seems to me what you're doing is a kind of metaphysical parochialism, like where you take the customs from where you live on holiday with you and get annoyed when people don't do it your way, right? I mean, Paul Dirac apparently.
I did parochialism. I'm not sure about that word. So he's roasting Bill a bit, though, sort of saying, hey,
I can smell the smoke.
Yeah, if we can talk to mathematicians and they say this is how it works, kind of thing, well, you've just said, well, I've got my preconceived intuitions that say that's wrong. And even though we're using empirical studies to sort of analyze how this hypothetical would come out, you're going to hold on to them because you don't like how the math turns out. I got to say, Malpass is making an excellent point here because that seems to be his objection. Whereas Malpass is going, okay, well, I don't know if it's possible, but the math works. So why would we eliminate it if we do have mathematics? Which I might add, mathematics, William Lane Craig presumably thinks it was given to us by God, or it's some kind of, Platonic object or some sort of real thing rather than just a language or something sort of just an imagination thing. What's the word I'm looking for?
Abstract concept.
Yeah, abstract concept. Yes. So what it's kind of wild, right?
It's oh goodness. The metaphysical substrate of reality is in mathematics. It's, like English. We have to discover the Platonic truth of it rather than just come up with stuff to help us do what we're trying to do. It's fine. So parochialism is our word of the day, apparently. I've heard the term before. Most of us have a general sense of what it means, but just to make sure, I decided to look it up. So parochialism can be defined as a narrow-minded focus on small local or regional interests while ignoring the broader world or larger community, such as focusing only on what directly affects you and your immediate group or country, resistant to change, rejecting outside ideas, diverse cultures, or a global perspective, and favoring your own community's perspective in a biased fashion, even when it harms the larger community.
Wow, that is the most elegant way I have ever seen somebody accused of being in an echo chamber. I got to give it to Alex Malpass. That is a very elegant way to say you're in an echo chamber.
I know, somebody give Bill a cross because
Parochialism.
he's getting nailed.
Hey, some people like that kind of thing.
It's true. So if you're into that sort of thing.
He was like this. When he'd go to the opera, he would, instead of hanging his hat up, as they do in Denmark on the way in, he'd keep his hat on his lap, and it caused big offence. He was being parochial by taking his mannerisms and his behaviours with him instead of adopting the manners and behaviourisms that were appropriate to the setting that he was in. And I feel like complaining...
We could have just let Alex explain what he means, but I didn't know he was going to do that, so, you know.
Well, he went to the entire history of the word, so yeah, I think he's getting his point across. But yeah, that's important, and I think you know, no offense, a lot of Americans have to realize that, and I mean literally, when they move throughout the world, they don't pay attention to the cultures around them and how they're different, or a lot of them just don't care. So they will go to Japan and be loud and boisterous on the trains, or they'll go to Australia and start talking to people on the train. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not done. Don't do it. Please. I'm begging you. Just be aware of local customs.
In fairness, Americans are obnoxious here too. You're familiar with sovereign citizens, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got those too. They usually don't travel out of the country, though. I'm not sure if they believe the rest of the world exists at all.
That's a possibility. Oh, goodness.
Maybe.
I had a friend in middle school who went, for some reason, he visited Paris. Like it was a family trip or something, like whatever. He came back and he was having an existential crisis. And he was like, Ember, I mean, my name wasn't Ember at the time, but you know, he's like, Ember, I need your brain. I cannot shake this thought that I saw all these wonderful people in Paris and the cityscape and like all this cool stuff. And there was bread and there was wine and there was cheese and there were catacombs and all these things. And now that I'm back here and no longer observing Paris, does it still exist if I'm not observing it? And I'm like, bestie, as it turns out, you are a brain in a jar. The jar just happens to be made out of bone. So if you're going to be a solipsist,
don't go halfway. If you're going to be a solipsist, go hog wild. Like, I don't even exist. I am just a figment of a butterfly's imagination kind of thing. Like seriously, like if you're going to be a solipsist, you might as well just give up now, because, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it's just such a ridiculous argument. And although, look, there are arguments for simulation theory. Okay, there's definitely arguments for that.
I mean, from a certain point of view, it's true, because the reality we think we're seeing is a simulation constructed by our brains. That this isn't what my room looks like. It's just the photons the camera's picking up being transmitted by your screen that your eyeballs are seeing and then interpreting. Like this, it's an illusion. We all have a very similar illusion. Like, you know, my shirt is pink and my microphone is black. Like we can all agree on what we're seeing. There's something objective about that, but it isn't like an absolute. This is just what humans think. A bat would see it differently, you know?
Yeah, but I think it's accurate for a given value of accuracy. You know what I mean? Like, I think it is accurate for, but there's like my argument for simulation theory, that all of this is just a simulation like the Matrix, is that the American government have a department called Doge. Now, if that isn't an argument for this world being unreal, I don't know what is. That is ridiculous. Like, seriously, that is
it's
real
absurd,
world would have
you
that
might
in
say.
it.
Yeah,
It is absurd, yes. So what, Bill thinks that Doge wouldn't exist because it's absurd?
you know, there is something to that from a philosophical standpoint. The idea that you start with a reality that seems real, and then you just keep pushing it slightly further and further into the absurd, and see how long it takes for the human collective to just throw up their hands and be like, you're shitting me. This is clearly not real. At what
Right.
point will that break happen? And maybe that's
Right.
the experiment.
Maybe. It makes a lot more sense than what's currently happening. So yeah.
Right? I want to cry because, like, there's no way to explain what's going on with the US government. It doesn't make any sense in any. I realize there are explanations, like there's a bunch
Yes.
of stupid, hateful people who wanted a stupid, hateful man just like them in charge to justify them being stupid and hateful. But, like,
Yeah, but I don't
that's an
think that.
explanation, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I don't think that stupid and hateful is an accident. I think that that's been generated over years of lack of education and, you know, taking things away from people and sort of, you know, compartmentalizing them against the rest of the world kind of thing. I don't think that that's an accident. I think that, you know, the stupid and hateful voter that voted for Trump is exactly who they wanted to have in the polls, you know, out there voting. I think that's their ideal person. I don't know. I don't know. Like, from my point of view, I totally understand. I see it like a train wreck. You know, it's absolutely horrific. And I'm glad I'm not in it. But at the same time, I'm like, is everybody okay? Apparently not. Apparently nobody's okay.
You touch on an interesting thing that I was just learning about yesterday, because I was interviewing for a job as it happens, and you know, we may talk about that another time. But I came across this concept called mimetic theory, which is a model of human behavior created by a French philosopher and anthropologist, René Girard, who states that his basic thesis is that human desires are not either original or internal, but are copied from other people. We see another person want a thing, and so we want a thing, because who the hell actually wants a yacht? They're very stupid, but because other people have yachts, now people want yachts, sort of thing. So the idea is that people don't know what to want on their own, so they look at others to model their own desires on. And once you get two people who want the same object, it creates rivalry. In order to control these rivalries and preserve peace in the community, you must establish a scapegoat and get everyone mad together at the same scapegoat. And this is where it kind of trends into 1984 territory. This is one of the foundational principles of the powers behind the right-wing movement in the US. The reason I came across this is because I was doing research on Christian nationalists. And while a lot of the people behind the movement are true believers, a lot of them aren't. And they all subscribe to this theory, which is why we've had culture wars for 40 years. They keep making scapegoats because of this theory. It's not just a distraction. It's also a way to bring about peace by making everyone hate one small group. In theory, they're bad at it, but that's why that's there. More tangents. Yay.
Yay.
That Hilbert's hotel isn't like a finite hotel holding on. So basically there are intuitions, two intuitions that are pulling in opposite directions, right? One of them is that if you can line up the elements of two sets one to one, then that shows you that they have the same, that they're equinumerous. That's Hume's principle. The other one is that if you take a proper part out of a whole, that must be smaller than the whole, right? The whole must be greater than the proper part. That's sometimes called Euclid's maxim, right?
Yes.
But in the infinite case, as Galileo showed, that it just fails, right? There are just as many even numbers as there are natural numbers. So those two concepts kind of overlap in the infinite case. You can have proper parts that are equinumerous to the whole. And that's just, tough. That's what it's like. So you can't just take your intuitions with you and say, well, damn it, this can't exist because of my intuitions. That just feels like very bad practice in metaphysics. And we have to be much more subtle than that. That's too rigid and, like I say, parochial, it seems to me.
I don't think that's fair at all. These arguments against the actual infinite are
How dare you use arguments against my feels, though? How very rude.
Well, I get what he's saying. It's counterintuitive. It's not an argument. And like a better way for Bill to address this is, well, that's fine if the maths point to it, but we don't know if these mathematical principles will eventuate with an infinity in reality, right? Like, we don't know. So I'm not going to believe that infinite things can exist in reality unless we have clear evidence that they can be, and not just mathematics. For instance, the mathematics of multiverse works, or string theory, but we don't know if that's actually true or not, right? Like, just because the math works doesn't mean it is the case, right? Because maths can describe things that do not exist. Like, I could do a mathematical equation regarding, how many sheep there are in a paddock, but that doesn't mean they actually exist. I am just using math to do something. Like, I think that but the problem comes for Bill that he thinks that math is something that we're discovering, and that sort of is the rules of the universe that a god laid down, kind of thing, like some sort of, divine law kind of thing, how the universe operates. So he's kind of stuck where I can just sort of say, hey, yeah, maths is an excellent system for describing how the world works. If the math does make sense, it's kind of, Bill's a bit stuck because he thinks math is, the reality of things. Or I think he does anyway.
Well, as a philosopher, he kind of, so there's an underlying principle that logic is just math, but in symbolic form rather than numerical form. And that makes sense from a mathematician's perspective because you're used to dealing with symbols and variables and so forth. And so you're just substituting in, instead of like the length of an unknown line, humans' propensity to blame non-believers, or whatever. You just substitute things in, and then you work your equations, and it's not fine. But they like to pretend that it is some kind of absolute, unquestionable thing. Whatever. But mathematicians, again, logic is mathematics with some adaptations. Mathematicians have been dealing with infinities of different size for a very, very long time, and there's a process where you can match infinities in order to show which one is bigger, called bijection. And what you do is you couple numbers. You take a sample of the infinity and you couple the numbers. Now, in the example given here with the library with red books and blue books, you take the totality of all books and you match it against just the red books. And if you don't get a one-to-one correspondence, then the totality of all books is bigger than the totality of red books, even though they're both infinite. It was proven in like 1891 or something.
Yeah. Actually, his example was red books and black books, which leads me to believe that like William here loves a bit of roulette. That's what it suggests to me.
I can't roulette it out.
Yeah, and just one green book in the middle of them. Yep, there you go.
just one random curses. We landed on the green book. Why does this keep happening?
Well, depends if you bet on the green, then you'd get a huge payout.
Well, I suppose. I mean, the odds on an infinite array. You need something bigger than the Monty Hall problem to make that one work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perhaps.
Absolutely. Actually, that's a really good example of a counterintuitive thing, is the Monty Hall problem. That's counterintuitive.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That one, I got into trouble with that one because I was a teenager. And I must confess, when people told me that Marilyn Vos Savant was the smartest person in history, I was like, that's No, she believes in the Monty Hall problem. Like, this doesn't make any sense. So I actually did a correspondence with her, which, she was still writing articles at the time. And so she wasn't averse to, reading mail from real people.
Mhm.
And she, I was like, the Monty Hall problem, the fuck. And she wrote back, and she was very gracious. She wasn't
Mhm.
like, you stupid idiot, you're reacting instead of thinking. But
Right.
she explained it in a very calm way. And she was like, I realize on the surface it doesn't look like this, but if you look at the math, it
Mhm.
definitely works
It
like this.
definitely
And
works like that, yeah.
believe the math or not, look at the results. The
Mhm.
outcomes show it to be true. And I was like, well, huh. And so I had a lot of egg on my face as a teenager. That's bound to happen, I suppose.
Yeah, so the Monty Hall problem, for people that don't know, is you've basically got 3 doors, and behind one door is a new car or a prize, and behind 2 doors are goats. Is it goats in the original? Oh, well, they're goats in my one now. All right,
Yes.
I don't know what they are, but
Honestly, I'd
so
take the goat. Goats are darling creatures. They'll eat your house, but they're
yeah,
cute.
yeah. Over a car though, I could use a new car. I'll be honest with you. Look, so you choose one door, like so you choose a door, and then um the host Monty, he shows you a door with a goat behind, and then you get the choice to swap your choice or keep the one you've already had. And the answer to this is you always swap what your choice is, and the math actually works out. And you might say, oh, well, then it's a 50-50 chance. It's actually not. It's actually not. The reason why is because you start off with a 1/3 chance of being right. And then it gets, the probability is reduced once you take one of the errors away. So it actually is better for you to swap and go with a 50-50 than the 1/3.
Oh, it's not even a 50-50. It's because you now have a known result. Because remember, the original is thirds.
Yeah.
If you took away one door entirely and didn't reveal what was behind it, then you'd be down to a 50-50. But since you have the knowledge of what was behind one of the original doors, that means that switching gives you a 2/3 chance of being correct.
Right.
And that's the weird part, is like, why
Mhm.
would changing the door cause the new door to inherit the probability of the open door?
Yeah,
But
it does.
yeah, it's nuts. And it works on bigger scales too, more than 3 doors. Like if you had 1,000 doors, the same thing happens. It's so many goats, and also flowers. Thank you for the flowers, Luke. And jewels, treasure.
Centuries old, more than a millennium, and includes some of the greatest mathematicians like Gauss, for example, who refused to admit anything other than the potential infinite, or David Hilbert. You can't say that David Hilbert needed to reform his metaphysical intuitions in light of his mathematical knowledge. You yourself, Alex, in your own work, often appeal to metaphysical intuitions. For example, your material causation principle, that everything that begins to exist has a material cause, or your
Well, that's what
existence
we've seen.
excludes.
I don't think that's intuition, though. That's
No.
induction. That's inductive, because everything we've seen to begin exist has a material cause.
Additionally, and it's great that Bill cited an example, even though he's wrong about it. It's fine to come up with a hypothesis with intuition as a starting point to have the idea, but then you have to investigate the idea. You can't just go, oh, this feels good, I'll just publish it. You know? Test things. Damn it, Bill. I'm a doctor, not a philosopher for, never mind.
Exclusion principle, that if something already exists in a space, then something cannot come into being in addition to that. Or your principle that if each event in a series can be counted, then all the events can be counted. All of these are based on metaphysical intuitions. And so I'm happy to look at situations like Hilbert's Hotel, Bernadette's book and many others, and share them and hope that the reader will say, yeah, this doesn't look like this reality can really be like that. And then that will enable us to affirm both.
We do acknowledge that Hilbert's Hotel does not exist in reality.
Right.
Like, it is just a thought experiment.
Yeah.
So yeah, the reader will agree this can't exist in reality. Because it's really
But, I
hard to
mean-
build a hotel with infinite rooms. When are you done with construction?
But there's a lot of thought experiments, like the prisoner problem. We don't have actual prisoners, Bill. Like, you've got to understand this. Like, a lot of the hypotheticals that people come up with, they're also like, we're not just going, okay, we imagine this hotel, Hilbert's Hotel, and that's, they're doing the math behind it and using Hilbert's Hotel to explain what they mean, right? Like, it's not like, this is the thing. He's sort of mistaking a simplified explanation of mathematical understanding and going, oh, but it's not a real hotel. Well, of course not. They're using that to explain the concept, that's not how they arrived at it. Do you get what I mean? Like, it wasn't like someone went, oh, well, if I imagine this hotel, this will happen. No, they're doing the math in the background, and then they go, how do I explain this? Okay, imagine you have a hotel, right? Like, he's sort of got it backwards.
Right. It's like he's taking Schrodinger's cat and saying this is real, and then when Aquinas says imagine into being the greatest possible slice of pizza, that's it's frustrating, because I tend to agree with noise ending. The phrase metaphysical intuition makes me want to cry, because like it entails that you're performing a non-analytical way of grasping something that you are imagining is a fundamental truth of reality, specifically without relying on step-by-step logic. It's like saying, oh, the logic is, I'm a philosopher, doing logic is too hard, I'm just going to make things up.
Yeah, well, I think that metaphysical makes some atheists cry. Like, I've met some materialists or some physicalists who just, like, they really hate the idea of metaphysics, and all metaphysics is just the study of foundations, origins, like what brought all of our physics, if you will, all of our actuality about. It's not supernatural, but a lot of atheists take it that way because people like William Lane Craig throw it around a lot. But it doesn't necessarily mean that metaphysics is a supernatural thing. It's just dealing with the foundations. That's all, or the properties behind the physics, or how the physics came about, basically. So if you have a meta conversation, it's a conversation about the conversation. Metaphysics is sort of, the conversation about, or the physics about the physics, basically. It's hard to explain, but anything meta is sort of just one step removed kind of thing, like you're talking about the thing. So if you've ever done tabletop role-playing like Dungeons and Dragons, there's, like, people say don't be meta, and that's when you're talking about the game while you're the character, right? Like, so the character saying something about the rules is
it's
meta.
not like real humans ever do that, like talking about, like
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier, with reality being a simulation.
Right. But
D&D
like,
characters who
it's a
know
bit
they're in a
like
game.
a fourth wall break would be a meta conversation, right? So Deadpool talking about the script of Deadpool is meta conversation. So metaphysics is sort of talking about the origin, the foundations, the stuff behind the physics, behind everything, basically, behind the universe, behind everything. But it's a hard concept to describe in a way that people feel satisfied with when it's used to mean supernatural things to so many theists. They'll just go, oh, well, it's metaphysics and that means supernatural. No, it absolutely does not. Absolutely does not.
It's just the study of the nature of reality. Like, why are the laws of physics as they appear to be? And some people like Bill will say, well, it's clearly evidence of a fine tuner. And some other people be, oh, it's the whim of some other divine agency, or possibly a demon, or who the hell knows? Like, people will come up with things, but very rarely do people get into the philosophy of it and try to logic out some things that we can actually like nail down. And it's difficult, because how do you get at the pillars of reality underlying physics? It's very hard to brain, but you can do it to some extent, much like you can send super chats, like Left-Handed Jedi, who sent us $2. Thank you so much, Jedi, and says, wait, I made a reservation at Hilbert's Hotel. Well, you better check in before they fill up.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I don't know if you're going to get your deposit back for that one, champ, but yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, well, on the flip side, from a certain point of view, you don't even actually need a reservation, because they're definitionally never full.
That's true. And so here's a problem. If you stay at Hilbert's Hotel, does the maid ever clean your room?
From Bill's point of view, no, because she can't ever get to your room.
Correct.
But from a more, I want to say realist, but I don't think that's quite accurate either. From a different perspective, she has to be cleaning some room somewhere, and that room must be a specific number of rooms away from yours, so she will eventually get to yours. It just may take a very long time.
Or does Hilbert's Hotel, because it has infinite rooms, it has infinite maids as well? Maybe. Just less, still infinite maids, but less maids than the rooms.
Hilbert's Hotel has infinite rooms, and one maid for every 20 rooms. Solve for the staff. How many people are on staff? Good luck. As Nell says, metaphysics is a major branch of philosophy, yet many people dismiss it because they mistake it for being about the supernatural. I have to confess, when I one of my earlier religious degrees was, the program was metaphysics, and I thought it was like the study of miracles when I started it. I was very mistaken.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of, it's because a lot of, I mean, and Bill doesn't do that in his defense. He doesn't, he obviously knows what it is, but there's a lot of sort of internet theologians and apologists that will, they've sort of co-opted the word just to mean, God, basically, or what comes from God, or something supernatural, or something divine, essentially. And so, as a response, a lot of internet atheists have sort of gone, well, then, I'm going to deny it exists in that case. I don't think you should have to do that in order to argue against it, kind of thing. I think that, it's explainable. You can sort of explain what you're talking about. And if they disagree with the definition, well, that's tough on them. That's how I'm using it. And that's how it's used in philosophy of religion. It's how it's used all over the place. So, they can be wrong if they want, but hey. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Colloquialisms and things. It's also fascinating. And another tangent here, how earlier we were discussing about how the usage of a term changed. And so while it seemed to be invalid, it was actually valid. And in that case, we were talking about PhDs relating to real science instead of just, logic and thought experiments. And then now here we are talking about a specific discipline whose in popular usage is being used a different way, and how that's not valid. And we have to gatekeep it to the actual meaning of the term, or we lose an entire area of viable discussion. It's fascinating.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that is a meta discussion because it was a discussion about the meta discussion.
Yep. Meta
Woo!
discussions all the way down. Yep.
It's true. Eventually we're going to hit turtles, I promise.
Yeah.
Both Euclid's maxim that the whole is greater than the part and the correspondence principle of one-to-one correlation determining equinumerosity, because we only admit finite collections. So why not give up of this inconsistent triad, give up the most controversial one, that an actual infinite number of things can exist, and stick with Euclid and Hume on the other two?
Well, there's
I'm sorry. I've
so-
just got to say, you believe in the Trinity and you're talking about a inconsistent triad. Seriously? Okay. Okay.
And nobody is forcing these in. Okay, Bill is, but like, I'm not. There's probably people who are trying to force these things into a kind of incoherent trinity, but they don't actually have to be. Because the neat thing about philosophy is you can talk about different things in different spheres through different lenses. They don't have to all play nice with each other. Like, to borrow from physics, wave-particle duality. A thing can behave like a wave in some circumstances and behave like a particle in other circumstances. And these are not contradictions. It's just circumstance dependent, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just before I forget it, the point about me appealing to intuition such as the exclusion principle, which is interesting that you're picking up on that one, but it strikes me that the dialectic is different there, and this it's different to appeal to an intuition when you're doing an undercutting defeater as it is to asserting a metaphysical thesis. It's a slightly different dialectical context, but it's a subtle point. Maybe we should drop that. Just to come back to the idea of how you resolve the inconsistent triad, right? Hume's principle, Euclid's maxim, and the existence of an actual infinite. There are numerous ways to resolve that. One is to just say,
and to be clear, we don't have to actually infer an existing infinite. There may be things that are effectively infinite, like how much space there is in the universe from our point of view,
Yes.
but we don't have to assume it actually is infinite. There's no reason to.
well, there couldn't be an actual infinite, of course. The other one is just to, in the infinite context, talk differently, right? Just tell me, is the hotel finite or not? Now I know whether to apply. I can apply both Euclid's maxim and Hume's principle. If the hotel is infinite, I'll just talk differently about it, and I won't contradict myself, and I'll be able to describe what happens. And you're going to say that that's absurd, but I mean, I don't see why I should make a big metaphysical concession when I could just change how I talk. So it sounds to me that that's
Well,
the sort of way.
I think he would interject that it's sort of special pleading kind of thing, that you have groups of numbers and infinites are, grouped differently. But I think that's already true of some numbers, like 0 is treated differently. Like 0 is a number that is treated differently because you can't divide by it, for instance. It's kind of, well, yeah, I mean, you can, but there are numbers that are treated differently kind of thing, like there just are. So I don't think that, I don't think that's entirely unreasonable to say that as a number, infinity is treated differently because it is not like the other girls, basically. It does have things that it operates, just as 0 has things that it operates differently as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the case of infinity, it's pretty clear that it's not a number, it's a concept. And from the difficulty with 0, we can see that 0 is also actually a concept. But here's where you realize it's not the spoon that bends. There is no spoon. It's you bending. All numbers are concepts. We made up the whole thing, folks.
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of prior-like move is to make sure that we're talking about things in the right way, rather than making big metaphysical concessions to get out of this problem. So,
Well, but surely it is making an enormous metaphysical assertion to say that an actually infinite number of things can exist.
I'm not saying that it can. I'm saying if it could, that's how I would treat it. I would
Right,
just
but
talk about
that's
it
not enough.
Well, there's a difference philosophically between a
Right.
thing that can exist and a thing that
Mm.
does exist, or to phrase it in using Bill's terminology, a thing that can't exist and a thing that can't not exist. Which is a weird way to put it, but that's
I
kind of
think I
the
understand what you mean.
direction.
But I mean,
Yeah.
there are definitely things that we know can't exist, like paradoxes kind of thing, like a married bachelor or a a square circle. It violates laws of logic. Something cannot be these two things at the same time. Like we can't do that. But an infinite, I don't know. Like he's sort of just saying, hey, that can't be possible, not because of any break in logic, but just because I don't like the idea of it, and that is
Right.
just an appeal to incredulity. And I like, and I will point this out. Malpass is not saying that it is possible that it exists, right? He's just sort of saying, hey, it's not impossible that it exists in reality.
Yeah, at
And
least
I
based
would,
on what's being presented, because Bill
right.
hasn't brought forth anything with a substance to it other than I don't like it. And in order to show there's a contradiction, you have to bring the contradictory fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Or I think that, so I like Malpass, and I'd probably be on the same page with him here. I don't know if it's possible to have a infinite or not in reality, but Bill's sort of saying it's not possible. Well, okay, Sparky, please show that, or just get something beyond. Well, it seems counterintuitive, and it seems to be a symmetry breaker between these laws which apply to finite numbers.
Right, like if we're dealing with a set of finite stuff, then this abstract discussion is just a freaking red herring anyway. It's Wes is here. I assume it's Wes running Thought Experiment, since
I would assume,
Mark is on screen at
yeah.
the moment. In non-Luke,
I'm not given
I can't
any
pronounce.
control over. I'm not given any control over these channels and stuff like that. I'm sort of trying to help as much as I can, but like no one would trust me with control over something like that. I mean, are you
I
crazy?
mean, you run your channel fairly
Barely.
well. It's fine.
Barely.
But yes, well, while we're plugging things, let's take a moment. Thought Experiment every other week. Debates of a sane nature. I mean, the topics can get a little esoteric, but like the people aren't evil. It's we live in a weird time when I have to describe something that way. It's non-trash fire debates. There we go.
Yes. At least some level of passionate but civil debates, absolutely. Or at least, not just children insulting one another. It'd be nice. It'd be nice.
Mm-hmm. In a way, it seems some of the debaters out there on the internet today, I will give Bill Craig this much credit. He will be very polite while he says you're an idiot.
Yeah, I think, I don't, I really, I will be a bit generous with William Lane Craig, because he is sort of descended from that sort of academia ivory tower, if you will. I mean, that sounds a bit harsh, but that's sort of the environment that he sort of is engaged with. So I think Malpass, yes, he has credentials, but he came out of the, like I said, the first time I heard of him when he was talking to Darth Dawkins, and it, he absolutely slaughtered him kind of thing, but he's coming out from a different sort of scene. So, I think we've got to give room to people that disagree with us, but at the same time, we shouldn't be shy about disagreeing. The problem that I see a lot nowadays is that people will come into a Discord or come into a YouTube chat and go, well, you've got to agree with me. And then just go on and on and on and on, repeating the same things over and over and over until you I think that they think if as long as they just push their idea enough, you're going to agree. And it sucks all the oxygen out of the room. It gets annoying. They're not bringing up anything new, or they're just dogmatically asserting something without telling you why. It's very frustrating. And I include not just theists who come in to preach, but I've seen atheists who want to preach something. They want to preach objective morality, or they want to preach, some other thing that they've, gotten red pilled on or something, and it's just like, dude, you can just disagree and not be so pushy.
Yeah. And personally, for those of you who are new, first of all, subscribe. If you're still here after an hour and a half, you must like this sort of thing. So, stick around. It'll be neat. But for those of you who are new, fairly often, either Mark or I, or both, or independently and so forth, will go off about how disagreement is one of our most powerful tools as a species, because being humans, we have a propensity to get things wrong from time to time. By definition, you're not aware of your own blind spots. Disagreement is how we can see around those corners into those areas that we ourselves can't see. And our goal as thinkers, shall we say, is not to be right, it's to become less wrong. And disagreement, while not everyone who disagrees with us is necessarily more correct about something than we are.
Yep.
Without disagreement, we can't ever find out where the things we're mistaken about are. And so we can't become less wrong. That's my take, though. I enjoy being wrong because, well, when I find out that I'm wrong, I don't enjoy being wrong. But when I find out I'm wrong, then I can be less wrong. And also I learn new things. And this is one of those, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts sort of situations, because as I've said before, this is where epiphanies come from. When you have a wrong idea and it gets replaced by a right one, suddenly it starts snapping together with other bits and pieces of information in your brain, and you get a brand new molecule of knowledge. You understand something that you couldn't have understood with the previous erroneous information. And that's really neat. Anyway.
Alex, I agree. If it could, then it would be like Hilbert and Bernadette said. But I think it has an impossible antecedent in that counterfactual. And so it's not enough just to say, well, this is the way infinite hotels would be if they did exist. We agree with that.
But motivating the impossibility of the antecedent can't be because there's no other way of dealing with this triad. Because,
wow, say that 5 times fast. Motivating the impossibility of the antecedent.
Yeah, they're really using some words. The antecedent is the let's see. Antecedent is the one that's not true, right? So the impossibility of the antecedent is a way to sort of show that something is true.
Well, an antecedent is the thing that precedes another thing in a cause-effect relationship.
Right.
The preceding thing is the antecedent.
Ugh.
They're just, you know what? In fairness, it has to be rare to find a person with vocabulary like this.
Yeah.
If you are such a person, to find someone else that you can just unload terms and phrases and jargon at, and they understand. Like, they can completely keep up because they speak the same language, as it were. It has to be a very high level experience. You know,
I know
we all have our areas, things that we understand very, very well, but most people around us just don't. And so when you get in the same room as someone that speaks that special language you have, even if you disagree, it's kind of magical.
Well, I think that it's, you know, they really should be talking for the audience. I know that they're just talking for each other. I get that. It's just, you know, a part of me goes, well, you should be talking to the audience. I don't think that's why Alex is there. And I kind of think that's why William Lane Craig is there. But, you know, this is sort of the jargon that makes people tune out kind of thing, right? Like when you don't understand that, like, have you ever been at, you know, a party or something and two people know each other from work and they're just talking stuff that you don't understand, and obviously they're making great sense to one another. It is mind numbing for everybody else because they have no idea what's going on. That's essentially what we're seeing, because it is jargon. It's jargon being terms that are used within a certain field, and this is the jargon of philosophy kind of thing. And as I said, I dabble in philosophy. I'm certainly not, you know, any kind of expert in it. So yeah, they're actually going beyond my head.
It's, you know, it's great when you get to dig into higher level ideas and you experience on the day to day, and that's true for anything, not just philosophy, like physics. On those rare occasions when I manage to like pin down the laser weasel and have a conversation about whether you actually can go faster than the speed of light, it's fucking amazing. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who are like, the fuck did you just say? And you got to be mindful of the other humans.
Get it right. That's not a big deal. I feel very relaxed about that. I would just talk differently if in that situation.
Yeah.
So then I'm not worried about having to say that it's impossible.
Well, certainly you can deal with the inconsistent triad by giving up any of the three. I would obviously agree with that. But I'm saying that that's the cheapest solution, is to give up the premise or the principle that there.
Oh, this is so frustrating because like there is a certain value premise built into philosophy where if you're going to sacrifice an idea, you want to like give up the least. And so you put these valuations on them. And so you end up with statements like the cheapest idea. But just because something costs you the least to give up doesn't mean that is correct. How do we know what's correct, not just what's cheapest? Rar.
An actually infinite number of things and hold a finitism. That's an inexpensive solution to the problem.
I disagree, because that's a metaphysical concession, whereas what I'm saying is merely linguistic, and it must be cheaper. Just changing the way you talk is cheaper than committing to something being metaphysically impossible. So I'm open-minded about what's possible and what's not. I'm just going to adopt my language accordingly if something came along that you're saying is metaphysically impossible. And I think that is more lightweight. So maybe we are going to not be able to resolve this right now, but we disagree about which one of us is making the heavyweight metaphysical move here.
Yes, that's true. I think it's not just.
Oh, yeah, behold, another meta conversation.
I definitely think that William Lane Craig is. He is making the impossibility of the infinite is you know, I wouldn't claim that. And I don't think that infinites can exist in the real world, but I certainly am not saying that they're impossible. I wouldn't sort of say I've got any knowledge of that. Like, no.
I mean, we can certainly hypothesize a realistic scenario. A photon gets emitted and then just never hits a piece of matter in an expanding universe. That's rare because there's a lot of matter, even for all the empty space. But it's not impossible that a photon will just never hit anything. And so it is infinite. There we go. There is a plausible scenario for something infinite.
Yeah, and I think I base it on, like, I've never seen an infinite. You know what I mean? Like, I have a lot of positions I will take are provisional, right? Like, they're provisional positions based upon things that I've experienced or things that humans have experienced, or, you know, just not having enough information to have a solid position. So I may think something provisionally, but be willing to change my mind if ever. Like, for instance, a God being a immaterial mind, right? Like, the only minds I've ever seen have material substance behind them. So provisionally, I don't think minds can be immaterial. But if you show me an immaterial mind, I can provisionally, you know, I'll drop that provision and say, hey, I now believe that a mind can be immaterial.
Right. Like, and that's a big difference between skeptics and people who are emotionally invested in the certainty of a certain concept. Is there is nothing that I believe that I would not scrap if given convincing evidence to the contrary. I would like a thing to be replaced with something that works better, but if something is shown to be false and there's no replacement, then I'll just go back to I don't know, rather than continue to believe in the false
Yes.
thing. I may still use it if it has utility, like, Newton's formula for gravity, for example. We know
Sure.
it's not quite right, but it's pretty damn useful in a lot of circumstances.
No matter how we talk. But you were going to say something.
So,
Brenda.
no, so with something like Hilbert's Hotel,
Mhm.
you talked about changing the language.
Can
So
I
if we were
stop
to
it
think
for a
about this
second?
Infinite Hotel,
Sure.
I just wrote Ember has Mad Hat Game, and now it's come up saying Man has Mad Hat Game. What are you seeing that I wrote there? Because if I mouse,
it's the
if
auto
I'm-
translate. You'll notice there's a little symbol at the beginning of your thing
Yeah.
that has like what looks like a kanji character in a very tiny letter A. That means the auto
Yeah.
translate has affected your sentence. If you hold your mouse over it, it'll restore it to what you originally wrote. It turns
Yes.
out Ember in Hungarian means human. And so Google has decided when it sees my name, it'll change it to man. It's not being transphobic. It thinks you're saying a Hungarian word.
Yeah, if I mouse over it, it has the original message. So how the hell do I turn that off? Like, can you turn it off?
I don't know.
Google,
It doesn't
stop it. I didn't
always
wanna
do
say
it. It's
that.
very hit or miss.
That's ridiculous. Maybe it's my accent. They think that I need translation, maybe. Nobody understands what I'm saying because of my atrocious Australian accent. So it's trying to help me out. Google, you're absolutely terrible. Hang on a second. I'll see if I can find out how to turn it off.
We've seen interesting things happen. It's one of the Filipino languages. I want to say Tagalog. You know how a lot of people say
Tagalog,
Haya
yeah.
as a greeting? Tagalog,
Yeah.
that's it. And so,
Mhm.
Titan, whenever he sees Maya, he traditionally says Haya Maya because, it's a little bit extra funny. I do
Yeah.
the same thing, to be fair. And now that the auto translate is showing up, randomly it'll change it to shame on you, Maya. Because
Wow.
Haya means shame on you
In Tagalog. Oh, wow.
So we're not allowed any nouns or colloquialisms because Google will change it into whatever language it can.
Oh, apparently it's a tick box in the settings of whatever you're in, apparently. Man, I gotta turn that off. Like, so apparently it's on the video, apparently? I don't know. That's wild. That is absolutely mad.
It's trippy, but that's
some
where we're at. You know what? I was
savage-
actually, the first few times I saw it, I was mad, but
I
once
can
I found
imagine.
out that it means human as in human being,
Right.
then it kind of makes the channel better than Ember mean better than human. And I kind of dig
Nice.
that because I'm
Yeah, that is
trying to
kinda
be a
cool.
better human all the time.
you might not want to say something like the hotel is full, because in that sense, when we talk about it being full, it can admit no more rooms, but actually
Right.
an infinite hotel would be able to admit more rooms. So it's kind of creating a sense of absurdity where it might not be if we were to conceive of it in an infinite way. Is that the kind of thing
This
would
is
be
where
doing?
it's important to stick carefully to the use of language, because the hotel is full. In the finite case, full means both every room is occupied and no new guests can be accommodated. Full in the infinite case, those two notions come apart. So what do you mean by full? Do you mean every room is occupied? Great. Doesn't mean I can't accommodate new guests, though, as Hilbert's Hotel, the thought experiment evidence is obviously it can. So if we're saying full in the sense that you can't accommodate new guests, Hilbert's Hotel is never full because it can always accommodate new guests. So as long as I keep those two senses apart and don't get misled into thinking.
Right. Avoid equivocation, like a fucking philosopher should.
Yeah.
When I say full, I mean full in a kind of exactly the same sense as when I'm talking about or if I'm careful to distinguish the two when we're in the infinite case, we won't be tripped up into thinking there's something, weird is happening. I mean, it's weird, but I wouldn't be
Yeah,
like
it's
contradicting
still
myself.
weird that every room can be occupied, and yet you funnel in infinitely more people without doubling up any guests anywhere or adding any more rooms to the hotel. This is really strange. And
Well, it is
No.
strange if you conceptualize it in that fashion.
Uh-huh.
Like you're going out of your way to make it strange to conceive of. Because in what
Yes.
fashion could it really be said to be full other than you just present that as a proposition, even though that is a contradiction with the premise that it has infinite rooms?
Yeah, and I feel like we've deviated a lot from the original subject, which was the Kalam cosmological argument, or William Lane Craig's version of the Kalam, with all of the ridiculous stuff tacked on the end of it. So I feel like they're sort of
they
getting,
also like the tangents.
they're getting bogged down. I think that so I think William Lane Craig is sort of trying to head off any suggestion that the universe could have existed infinitely, right? Like he's sort of trying to say, hey, no, it can't. But like if you're saying that infinites can't exist in the real world, then what does that say about God? Because doesn't he exist infinitely?
If you can't have infinites, then you can't have infinite beings. Holy
Right.
crow. Yeah, that little bit of a built-in contradiction there too. What's
Yeah.
not a contradiction? Luke sending more jewels, 5 jewels, and a treat. More treats. Hooray. Suck it, Dagon. I'm getting the treats tonight. And Majestic
Lucrative.
back sending 200 jewels and some sunshine on a cloudy day. I still have no idea what the jewels are, what they translate into as far as like the old super sticker system or whatever, but I will show you a bigger version of what the new tangent emoji looks like. Just because it's, I mean, yeah. It's Artemis on a rainbow, tangentially from the Earth. It's a whole thing. I spent way too much time on that. There was an idea to turn it into t-shirts so we could all wear like Team Tangent t-shirts, but it needs some work, but it does make a fair emoji, I think.
if I might add, as you know, I think Hilbert only considered positive arithmetic operations on the hotel, addition or multiplication. But in infinite set theory, the inverse operations of subtraction and division are prohibited because they lead to logical contradictions.
Are they? I mean, maybe they are, and I just didn't get that far in the philosophy of mathematics or something, but it just, the first time Hilbert's Hotel was ever presented to me, it was in the other direction. It was using the concept of subtraction. If you have an infinite hotel with infinite numbers of rooms and someone pulls the fire alarm, what happens? How long does it take to empty the hotel? It just, it seems to work the same way. It's but if you want shenanigans that seem to be mutually contradictory in both directions, equally incoherent, you might say, you can always count on Jester, who's a member for 36 months.
Wow. There you go.
I don't have an air horn, so I'm making do. 3 years.
I would love
Jester.
to hear a shenanigans.
Oh, I can do that too.
Yeah. Shenanigans. That's just for you, Jester.
That's right. Also, Jester actually said something too. I brought it up twice, and I keep turning it off before I actually read it. Jester says Craig is too short to reach the bar of the main plot. Oh no. Is that why he's stuck in the esoterica, perhaps?
I don't know.
My goodness.
I'd love for him to be pinned down on whether infinites are possible in the universe or not. Like, because he'll appeal to an infinite God all the time. And that, so are they possible or are they not? This is a thing. So when sort of people bring up the Kalam and sort of say, well, things that begin to exist have to have a cause. If the universe didn't begin to exist, if it's always pre-existent, then it doesn't have to have a cause, right? So you can sort of just pin them on whether or not things that begin to exist have a cause or not. Because if the universe, and the thing is, they'll sort of say, oh, the universe can't be infinitely existing. But when time is as malleable as we understand it, and it's very malleable, space-time, it contorts, it bends, it stretches. So when it is that malleable, it might have always existed. Because when you're sort of saying, well, did it exist before time? That's a nonsensical statement. That doesn't make any sense.
Indeed, bearing in mind that time and space are related and that the local speed of time is relative to the energy density of a given volume of space, then as the universe becomes smaller, infinite or not, smaller, more dense, let's say, more dense, as it becomes more dense, the local flow of time goes slower. And as you asymptotically approach that theorized singularity density prior to the inflation event, then time gets really, really slow.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, we don't have the exact math for it, because it's like two different layers of calculus. You've got the rate and then the rate of the rate, and it's the math gets weird. But as a gross estimate, that fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second after inflation, if it happened right now on the other end of the galaxy, say, and we were looking at it through telescopes, it would take billions of years. It's a very slow fraction of a second relative to how time is flowing for us right now. And that's trippy, because it means that while there is a finite history to the point of inflation, from our point of view, it's as unreachable as the speed of light, and for the same reason. Because as you get closer and closer to the speed of light, it eventually requires an infinite amount of energy to continue to accelerate. Same thing, but in reverse. So the speed of light, it's not infinitely fast. It is measurable. It's finite, but it requires an infinite energy for us to reach it. And the same can be true of time. This is a hell of a tangent.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll leave that one there.
But I just sort of saying in the chat, well, if you have something in an atemporal state, like, because William Lane Craig thinks in terms of a theory of time, like you have these sequences of time and one follows the other. He really thinks of it in this very linear way, whereas relativity tells us that that isn't what time is like. It's kind of occurring at all places at once kind of thing. So it's not the linear progression that we're thinking of. And that an atemporal state, like, it would be infinite in length, right? Like, because there's no time, but your mind breaks when you think about it, because an atemporal state, a state with no time, would be forever because there's no time, but it would also be instant because there's no time. Like, it would just be a state where time does not exist. So it's both infinitely long, and not long at all. It would be instant. It would be, over in a second, or less than a second, not any time at all. So it's hard for us to wrap our minds around, because we are so beholden to the intuitions, to borrow a word from William Lane Craig, of the time we see flow around us and the direction of time and all of this stuff. We're so entrapped by it. That we, it's very difficult for us to think outside of it. But just because it's weird and it's counterintuitive and it's absurd, doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah, yeah. As Eris says, infinite outside, infinite inside, instant outside, and we kind of have a reciprocal to that in reality. To go to photons again, remember the local phenomena of time's passage slows down as you approach the speed of light. So if you ever could catch a photon and sit on it, from your point of view, time stops. You're moving at the speed of time space. And so since you're moving through space at the speed of light, you cannot move through time, even though the photon is moving through space-time. It's weird, but that's, as we currently understand it based on Einstein's relativity, that's what seems to be the case. So from your point of view, riding this photon, there is no difference between the time of the photon being emitted and the time of the photon being absorbed. Even if it travels 100 billion years through space, emission and absorption are the same moment. It's not just one and then the next. They're the same moment. They're instantaneous. And that's trippy as hell. So from the inside, it's instantaneous. From the outside, granted, you have to have an absorption for the instant to ever be over, but if it doesn't hit anything, it's infinite. What fun.
And so it occurred to me, well, what happens when people start checking out
Yeah.
of Hilbert's Hotel? If all of the odd numbered guests check out, then an infinite number of people have left the hotel. And so infinity minus infinity is infinity. But if all the guests in rooms 4, 5, 6, and so on leave the hotel, then an infinite number of people have left the hotel, but 3 still remain. So infinity minus infinity is 3. And you can get any number from 0 to infinity as a result of these inverse operations. And yet in each case, exactly the same number of people left the hotel.
No. Infinity, and I cannot stress this enough, is not a finite number by definition. So you can't say exactly the same number of people left.
Right.
You can have one infinity be greater than another, as we discussed earlier.
Yep.
Just because we call them both infinity, you know what? We may need to like disambiguate or something. Like we need more terms to break apart this concept to better describe that first of all, that infinity is a concept and not a variable, but also that there's a way to distinguish between infinities. There probably is somewhere in set theory, and I'm just not familiar with it. But whatever the case may be, like Bill straight up thinks it is a number, and that's just not compatible with anything.
Yeah, like you know, that you know, it's basically, as you said, like a variable. Like it is, you know, 5, for instance, a ratio, which is always the same kind of thing, you know, and it's just being plotted, or a theta variable, or a you know, a Euclid's number or something. You know, it's just it's a value. It's not.
Yeah, it's not just X. It's something different. And as a philosopher, it drives me nuts because like that's supposed to be his whole thing, is playing with ideas and concepts. Not understanding. Oh my goodness. I get it that a lot of people have a lot of trouble conceptualizing infinity, because how can your finite mind even really grasp the idea of something that isn't finite? It's like trying to think of the universe from energy's perspective instead of matter's, where the galaxies are potholes in the cosmos, the places where energy just doesn't flow freely. There's interference, you know, the turbulence spots, you might say. It's trippy. It's difficult. Not everybody can do it, but Bill's ability to do it doesn't mean anything. Just
Yeah, and sort of these counterintuitive things, like it's understood it's going to be really hard for you to get your head around. But sort of William Lane Craig is sort of saying, well, I don't know why I should try, because it goes against my intuition. And it's like, well,
Theism. Why should I question whether God exists? It goes against my intuition.
But he's perfectly willing to say that God is infinite, based upon literally nothing, except, you know, his desire for Pascal's wager to come true for him or something.
Well, you know, if there's even one chance in a million.
Ugh.
Oh, I should have got that clip ready. I knew we were going to have Bill on. I didn't
That's
get
all
the
right.
clip ready. Alas. I'm bad at my job, folks. What can I do? Yeah, I blame the lobsters.
So we've got jellyfish that, you know, until something eats them, they can go on and on. And lobsters, for example.
I just love the look on Lil's face for that. Lobsters.
Yeah.
What?
Is in the previous examples. And boy, to me, Alex, this may not be a knockdown argument, but I find it persuasive.
Well, I think that this is, in a sense, it's exactly the same thing. There's nothing new in the subtraction as the addition, because we're still messing about with Hume's principle and Euclid's maxim. I think the way that it sounds worse is because you're saying infinity minus infinity is 3, infinity minus infinity is infinity, whatever. And then it looks like you've got 2 lines of arithmetic that give you non-unique solutions to it, right? And that's why it's not an operator in a standard Cantorian transfinite arithmetic, right? There's
yes,
no
that's basically saying it's
operation
not
there.
a real number. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and we run into this kind of thing like we were talking about last week when, you know, C.S. Lewis posed evolution can't be real because it causes infinite regress. When you find an infinity in your logic pertaining to reality, you're probably looking at the situation incorrectly. You've got an error in your reasoning. And it's a similar thing here, literally with infinities, but it's like Alex was saying earlier, it's a matter of equivocation. Bill is inadvertently equivocating that the one infinity equals the other because they're both called infinity, but it's just maybe it would be more accurate to say an infinite set, because then you can think of it as even though it's an infinite concept, it's a finite bounded thing. The concept is bounded, and you can have one concept that's bigger than another. Maybe that would help. I don't know.
And this, I guess this does get kind of technical, but you know, the way to think about it is that, you know, if it's not normal arithmetic, right? Infinity minus infinity equals 3 is not a statement in normal arithmetic, because infinity isn't a value that normal arithmetic can take. And it's not a statement in the standard Cantorian transfinite, because then there's no subtraction.
Because what?
Because subtraction isn't a mathematical operation in that system.
Well, they won't. It's unpermitted because
it doesn't have unique
the
values.
answers are undefined. You get contradictions.
But the point is that what you're doing is giving a kind of pseudo mathematical formulation. It's not a statement in any formal system that actually, you know, what you're using the word subtraction, but I can't put that in a formal context. There is no formal context in which infinity minus infinity equals 3 is actually, maybe there are various different versions of transfinite arithmetic. I think Conway's got one which does have subtraction. But putting that to one side,
Look,
it seems to be the easiest way.
I'm from a more IT background, and I'll tell you, a subtraction in IT is adding a negative number. Like, there is no subtraction in logic. I mean, the subtraction exists, but all you're doing is basically using the add function with a negative number.
That tracks. You know, logically, that makes sense. You know, you could say subtraction is always the addition of a negative number. We just do mental shorthand when we're in everyday use. Yeah.
Way, a formal theory in which to describe those guests leaving Hilbert's hotel. You just need to appeal to the notion of the relative complement in set theory. So we can just say, you know, the relative complement of A in B is just going to be something. We could say the relative complement of the even-numbered guests in Hilbert's hotel is the odd-numbered guests, right? So if what you're saying is, you know, the subtraction of the even-numbered guests, I'm just going to write that out as a relative complement, and it'll tell me which guests are left, as in all of the even-numbered ones. Now, the relative complement of all of the guests in rooms numbered 3 and above in Hilbert's hotel is all the guests in rooms 1, 2, and 3. So now I know I plug that in, I get out the right answer. There's no contradiction. It looks like a
Right, you can pull a finite set out of an infinite set, the rooms 1, 2, and 3. But there's a hidden fallacy in there somewhere, and I'm having trouble pinning it down. But it stands out when you think about the concept of you go to check into Hilbert's Hotel, and they've got an infinite number of guests in their infinite number of rooms, but you get assigned a finite room. You belong in room, 248 Googleplex +1 or something.
Yeah.
Right? Like whatever room it is a finite room. In that moment, you're assigning a finite value to infinity. And that's a problem. Because if there are infinite rooms and they're full and you get a finite room, you are now the pinnacle of infinity. And that creates I can't explain why, but there's a problem there. It's another thing I can't explain. Jester sent us a super chat for $5. Thank you, Jester. And says, I love his shit-eating grin as he says how dumb he chooses to remain despite his access to highly educated people willing to teach him. Teach me. Damn it. Right. Like
I think
one of
Alex
those
is doing
guys
a really good job,
like-
though. Like, he really is. He's doing a fantastic job. It's just, yeah. Is it willful ignorance?
I mean, if you're it's like the banging your head against the wall with the creationist thing, and on a philosophical level, it's the same sort of engagement where Alex is bending over backwards to explain these concepts to him, and he is a conceptualist first and foremost, and he's going, no, I want to believe, it's infuriating.
Well, you'd think a conceptualist, I think maybe he's an idealist rather, because obviously Alex is probably an empiricist, right? Like, first and foremost. But I think so. Hasn't William Lane Craig talked about Platonic ideals and things like that? Isn't he an idealist?
I believe you're correct. Yeah, I remember in his debate with Hitchens, he waxes into. Well, one of his debates with Hitchens, I think there were two, but he gets into the fact that numbers make sense proves God.
No, he's not an idealist. No, he's a metaphysical realist. Okay, gotcha.
Uh-huh.
So
I'm not sure that sounds like a distinction without a difference.
Well, so he sort of adheres to it's not that the universe is fundamentally mental or sort of a product of the mind of God kind of thing, but he thinks that things are like abstract objects are they're basically divine objects, basically. So he has Platonic objects kind of thing, but they're divine in nature rather than being a extension of an ideal.
I don't know. I don't think I like it, but I am burning through brain cells at a prodigious rate today. It's
fair enough.
Yeah, such is the nature of things, I suppose. Nell points out, assigning a specific finite number to represent the size or number of elements in an infinite set is a category error. Right. It's the same mistake that I was just saying that Bill's making. He's confusing the concept of infinity for a placeholder for an unknown but very large specific number. And that's honestly, that's a fair mistake to make. Einstein did the same thing in his first draft of general relativity. The reason he felt he needed a cosmological constant was because he could not conceive of a universe that was either infinite or beyond our ability to describe in a finite way. He thought of the universe as a big sphere, maybe an incalculably big sphere, but still a big sphere. And therefore, based on that concept, that error in his assumptions of it being a very large but still finite number, there must be a center of gravity If there's a center, then the gravity is centered on that point. And based on that, the universe must immediately collapse I mean, it'd have to travel through time and space and whatnot, but it would never inflate in the first place. And so that's why he needed the cosmological constant to keep the universe from collapsing, because of the error in the way he conceptualized it. He tried to assign a finite value to it's like Nell said, it's a category error. It doesn't apply in this circumstance. It's the wrong context. It's the wrong tool for the job, you might say. And I realize we use the cosmological constant now as like a placeholder for dark energy. But the fact is that Einstein ended up removing it because we found that not only is it not necessary, but his initial conception of how the universe looked was both backwards and entirely wrong. But that's another conversation for another time.
But he may have been right about that constant.
It's still a placeholder with
I
a
know.
variable value. It's just, I don't know. I think there's some people want to call it the cosmological constant, even though it's referring to a different force. Dark energy, we call it now.
Yeah.
But to retroactively undo Einstein making an error about something, but it's sort of a hero worship sort of thing, It's Einstein. We've like Aristotle, for example, right? Like a lot of people are still fanboys of Aristotle. They're just like, he's a Plato student and the smartest man who ever lived. Sure, he was wrong about some stuff, but
I'm sure he was Plato's student, but I'm not sure about the other stuff.
Well, the fanboys think he was.
Well, I think when we look at all of these thoughts and these hypotheses and these sort of descriptions of reality that come out, Aristotle's still incredibly useful, right? Like, so the laws of logic and all of that kind of thing, incredibly useful, and in most cases excellent to use. Like, they really do get, I think it has its downsides though. Like, I don't think anything is entirely accurate for describing reality, even our own senses, as you pointed out earlier, Amber.
Yeah, there's everything is limited. It's, with evolution, the hurdle is it good enough? Does it work well enough? And there's a similar practicality in physics. It's a higher epistemic bar, which is probably why Bill doesn't like it, but there's still a practical limit. Like, at a certain point, there isn't any use in going further into dissection until someone thinks of a use. And that's what philosophers love to do, is think of new use cases and so forth. But it's there's a lot. I've tangented so far I forgot the original tangent.
It's an infinite tangent. If we go on an infinite tangent, will we ever get back to the main point?
I'm starting to wonder if Alex and Bill will ever get back to the main point.
That's true.
Yeah. Because they've been on this longer than they were on the Kalam itself.
Inconsistency or something, because you're using a kind of pseudo-mathematical statement that doesn't belong anywhere in the kind of roster of mathematical theories. And I just think that's a kind of misleading way of describing it.
The theoretic formulation that you just gave is actually an attempt to conceal the contradiction, which is an arithmetic contradiction. It's an arithmetic operation that leads to contradictory results. Precisely
they're not trying to conceal it. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I don't, you're sort of saying, hey, mathematicians are trying to use math about infinity to try and conceal that it's contradictory. What are you talking about?
This is Frank Turek saying you can breed dogs until the cows come home, but you're never going to get a dog to produce a non-dog. Like, you're deliberately misunderstanding the entire subject matter, buddy.
Yeah.
Difference in removing different subsets out of the original set. So the point that I think remains is that using the normal definitions of subtraction and remainder and so forth you get contradictory results with this transfinite arithmetic if you try to do these inverse operations. And you're quite right. The mathematician will simply say, well, that's prohibited. You can't do that. But as I say, you can't stop people from checking out of a hotel.
No,
And so
that's true.
what you do is you subtract, in the normal sense of that word, identical quantities from identical quantities.
You
But
know,
they're not.
someone
not
once wrote a
identical
song
quantities.
about people being stopped from checking out of a hotel.
Yeah. So, but he's saying if you take identical, they're not identical. They're non-identical instances of infinity. They're not the same.
Mm-hmm. On a dark desert highway.
Yeah, and I mean with Einstein, don't forget that Einstein didn't think that quantum physics is real. He really
Well, he didn't
objected.
like it.
Yeah, he really objected to it. He
His
preferred-
metaphysical intuition found it unsatisfactory.
Right. And I mean, wasn't sort of he really against sort of indeterminism? Like he famously said, God does not play dice with the universe or something. Sort of he really objected to indeterminism in quantum physics. So yeah, I guess he really didn't publish anything on it or make a solid stance, but he really wasn't a fan of it. So you could say he was wrong about quantum physics,
From a certain point of view, he disagreed with schools of thought within quantum physics, but you can also say that
Yeah.
he's at least as responsible as Maxwell for the existence of quantum physics. He just didn't like some, and there's a point to be made here. There's what we know about quantum physics, the math that we're able to do completely all the way through, and then there's the probability stuff, and you can't do quantum physics without the probability stuff, but the probability stuff is where you get the weird results and where you get things like the Copenhagen interpretation, which is not the same as the Copenhagen law or the Copenhagen fact. It's an interpretation. It's a convention. It's an agreement among all parties that we're going to pretend things exist in this fashion when we don't actually know, because the model is useful,
Yeah. No, I
that's-
get you. It's just, yeah. But
It's
I
one of the
thought he
areas
sort
that
of
he didn't like.
argued with Niels Bohr a lot on it, and sort of, Niels Bohr kind of, he didn't show that Einstein was wrong because he wasn't, they weren't opposed to one another. It's just that, I think that other physicists had a better handle on it.
In some ways, yeah, it's so trippy, but it's not to say he didn't call quantum physics witchcraft. Remember, his Nobel Prize was for a quantum physics breakthrough. He described the photoelectric effect in physics terms, and yeah, that's quantum stuff. It's not Schrödingerian probability distributions,
Right.
In fact, I wonder if he could even publish on the photoelectric effect today, given the conventions that we've built up over the years, like the uncertainty principle, for example. Like, can you have a photon hit an atom and have that atom emit an electron without admitting that both the position and the energy level, which is to say the velocity of the particles involved, like the photoelectric effect working violates the uncertainty principle. That's fun.
Quantities, and you get non-identical remainders.
So I think maybe the issue is that the term subtraction is a mathematical term. It's not a term in natural language. If you want to use the word subtraction in natural language,
It's an arithmetic term.
Well, but arithmetic is to do with the natural numbers. So there can't be infinity, minus something, because infinity is not part of arithmetic. With transfinite arithmetic, then it doesn't have subtraction. So I'm not seeing an actual.
You can't have inverse operations in transfinite arithmetic, so long as you don't try to subtract infinite quantities from infinite quantities. For example, aleph null, the least transfinite number, aleph null minus 3 is Aleph null.
Okay. Okay.
So that's not a problem. That is,
He's venturing way the fuck off the deep end. Like we discussed over an hour ago, you can. There's that system of bijection from the 1800s, where, granted, that the way that's described is that you're pairing up sets within infinities to see if one set matches up with the other. If one has more things than the other, then it's a bigger infinity. You don't have to check the whole infinity to do it. So even though that's set up as a comparison, it could be reformulated as a subtraction. You can remove all the paired items from both infinities, or subtract the one infinity from the other, and see what's left. It's still infinite, but it's been reduced by the amount that's been removed, because we're dealing with concepts and not finite numbers. So there is a way you could conceptualize it and even handle it in logical terminology. It's just an adaptation of an already understood and proven concept. But you don't have to, because Craig's being an idiot right now.
Yeah.
a clear remainder that is correct. But the problem is when you try to subtract Aleph null from Aleph null, then the answer becomes undefined.
Aleph null, that rings a bell. It rings a very loud bell. Aleph null. It's a term. Shit, what is it? This is why we Google things, folks.
Set theory.
It is the smallest infinite cardinal number, which is to say it's a concept enabling you to treat an infinite as a countable finite term, which is to say if you have a set of infinites, you can count them, you can enumerate them, you can say I've got this infinity and this infinity and this infinity, I have 3 infinities. It's almost a kind of meta mathematics. We're getting all the metas today.
It's basically integers, so it's basically 1, 2, 3 and etc. But so there's larger infinities than Aleph null, because like you can have 1.5 and like you can have a list of all real numbers, and that will be bigger than Aleph null because it's not just integers, it's also decimals as well.
Yes. In fact, that's the reason the term was coined, is to demonstrate that some infinities are bigger than others.
Yes.
It's infinities are not necessarily equal, even though they're infinite. And the fact that Craig understands this, he's using the term with familiarity of it, means that he knows everything he said up until this point is bullshit. He already knows it.
Right.
And that's frustrating.
So according to this, the term for different sizes of infinities are called cardinalities.
Someone had a very fun time naming things.
Yes.
It was probably Aleph. Oh my goodness. This is like a mathematical version of advanced theoretical physics. You're like, all of a sudden, there's a whole bunch more terms. Someone just opened a door and dropped a thesaurus on your face. I think that's the first time my speech impediment has actually made it onto air. Oh, goodness. That's so fun. But it really is fun. Like, as much as we're dugging on Craig, I really like doing this kind of thing.
I don't know. I just think that he's I really wish Alex would then just challenge the infinite nature of God. Like, if he wants to push back this hard, I don't know how his God fits into this thing of infinites can't exist. But he thinks his God has been around for an infinite amount of time, has a almost infinite amount of power, is in all ways infinite. So I don't know, like I don't. This is sort of, I would not expect him to argue against infinites, except that he thinks that Alex is going to use it as the universe could have been around for an infinite amount of time. But if he's claiming that a God can and a universe can't, then you're really getting into special pleading, aren't you?
Mhm.
I'm bewildered.
Maybe that's why the big red herring, because he sees that chess move, and maybe that'll be the the end of the discussion when Alex finally gets sick of it and goes, listen, if you really believe that infinities are impossible, then what is your God?
Yeah.
Like, come on now. You're literally contradicting your own
Yeah.
fundamental metaphysical worldview,
Well, we're talking about the Kalam, right? So basically, it's like, well, you're arguing that your God could not have existed infinitely. So it had to begin to exist. So even under your own, adopted syllogism, it has to have a cause. So what's the cause of God?
Well,
I don't know.
we
That's
already
just my
know
opinion.
It's nil, the great not God and creator of creator gods.
Oh,
It's
that's
right
right.
in the
Yeah, I
name.
forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot.
But I just mean that the system, the Cantorian system, has a notion, has its rules and its behaviors, and you just can't make the statements that you wanted to make there. So that isn't a statement that belongs in that Cantorian system. It's a statement that belongs in no formal system. And that way, that's what I mean. That's pseudo-mathematical. You're not really using you say you're using subtraction in the normal sense. You're using it in a kind of orphaned sense, where it doesn't have a home in a mathematical theory, where we could really understand what it is you're saying. And that's why I was trying to say there is, the best way to put it into a mathematical theory or formal theory is in set theory. And then if we do that, there's no problem. So I just think that this is, it looks like it's more problematic, but it sounds to me like it's just more kind of confusing. That's why it sounds more
It's semantic, really. It's to illustrate the problem in a way that might be more accessible to more people. It's like they're trying to discuss multiplication, but Bill keeps stopping the conversation to explain that the number 2 is spelled in English TWO, and Alex is trying to explain that A, English isn't the only language, B, the way it's spelled in English is arbitrary, and C, that's a different conversation than we're trying to have right now.
Yeah.
problematic, and the mathematicians are not worried about this. My set theory friends
I
do not worry
disagree.
about
I
this
think
whatsoever.
That, 2 glasses minus 1 glass leaves 1 glass.
You're doing mathematics. So
different.
you've got the schema for mathematics and you've got the schema for set theory, and he's trying to push them together and say, hey, it doesn't work, like the set theory doesn't work inside this math. So, well, no, of course not. Come on, dude. It's like when you hear atheists say, evolution isn't true because of the second law of thermodynamics or something.
Yes.
And it's just like, that's exactly what it's like.
It is, yeah. It's the same sort of deliberate misunderstanding, completely missing a very basic point, denialism.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like saying the number 2 can't exist because it's spelled with 3 letters.
Wow. Okay. I haven't heard that one before, but sure. Yeah. I'm sold.
But how do you know what 3 means unless you have a 2 to get past to get 3 shall be the number you shall count? All right. I'm just getting silly at this point.
Felt about that sort of subtraction of concrete objects. That's a mathematic or an arithmetic operation that can be done. And if there
That's true, Grandpa. That is an arithmetic operation that can be done. Good job. Now, show me an infinite and subtract it from another infinite, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
There were an infinite number of glasses on the table, per impossibile, then we would get contradictory results. But I think we can leave it there. Allow our listeners to make up their own minds.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and I do want to.
I agree.
I know. I'm gonna have to start pulling my hair out, which means I'd have to take my hat off, and then I'd be less fabulous, and we can't have that.
Yeah, I can't pull my hair out. I did it all already. I've been through the ringer.
Oh, wowzers. Oh my goodness. All right, so we've got a little over half an hour left. This seems like a natural break in the conversation. Did you want to try to do a part 3, or do you want to try to kill this tonight?
No, I think a part 3. I don't think we're going to get through all of this, especially if they're going to get that into the minutiae of things. And I do realize that every time we do 2, I'm then choosing every single debate, which I want you to be able to choose the ones you want as well. This sort of got into the weeds. I kind of think the moderator, I think he's sort of giving them leeway as they're very big names, or at least William Lane Craig is. Alex Malpass, I've definitely heard of him. He's definitely very well respected in philosophy. So I think he's given leeway. I would have liked to see him step in and say, hey, can we, so how are we linking this back to the Kalam, which is the topic? That's the moderator's role, right? That if you're getting off into the weeds and you're just disagreeing on a point and going round in circles, he's there to get you back to the original thing. And so, asking William Lane Craig, so if infinities don't exist, how does this relate to the argument that the Kalam cosmological argument is presenting? And, to Alex, why do they, in order to object to the Kalam, why do the possibilities for infinites need to exist, kind of thing, right? Like, so just not trying to sink them or put them on, just trying to guide them back to how does this relate to the original topic is a really good idea. And it may help break out of that loop that they're in, which is, William Lane Craig claiming you can do mathematical operations on infinites and get inconsistent results, and Alex Malpass saying, hey, you're using the set theory wrong, basically. It would be a really good idea to just sort of go, hey, how does this relate to this argumentation? But I don't, like, I've seen this guy before on Unbelievable. I don't think he's a particularly good moderator. I think I don't know. He's not brilliant. He's okay, I guess. Not brilliant.
To his credit, he didn't fuck off to go get a sandwich.
That is true. That's a low bar, though.
We do love low bars around here, apparently.
Mean, we definitely do have low bars, yeah. Yeah.
7 hours.
Yeah. Thank you. Look, we don't talk about that. It's well, I do. It's just, I don't know what kind of an internet would allow that man anywhere. But it's good to see that guy lose a debate against Candace Owens, of all people. I mean, if you're losing debates against Candace Owens, damn, what are you doing with your life? Seriously. Nell says that, the second law, the worst one I heard, tangentially related to Wilson, was made by Jim Bob. Has a way, he basically has an argument that evolution breaks logic, and it's just like he's logically disproved evolution, and I laughed my ass off and then realized the person was actually serious, and I laughed even harder. Like, seriously. It's
he
just
did the J. Jonah Jameson. Oh wait, you're serious?
Oh wait, you're serious?
I'm still not convinced he actually is serious, though, because, like, it isn't impossible that he's so profoundly stupid as he portrays, and yet does understand somehow enough philosophy to make something resembling an argument.
Yeah.
But there's nothing logically incompatible with that in reality. But from a practical perspective, for a person to be that profoundly stupid and still be able to turn on his computer beggars belief. It defies my metaphysical intuition.
Yeah. Well, I think they're just they are just gathering ignorant and bigoted people in order to make money. Like that, they've realized that if you have no scruples and no morals, that appealing to people's hatred, bigotry, and prejudices can in fact make you a lot of money.
Yeah, it's the obviously bad logic and even worse science might be the equivalent of the Nigerian prince's letter having spelling errors. It's
Right.
It's a filter. People who are more interested in the emotional investment of having a place to be hateful than they are in the things that they're saying to justify their position actually being true. As opposed to Jester, who sends us $2 to say, bar's so low, you have to dig your own hole to trip. See, Jester doesn't have to be evil to say something true. It's neat. Oh goodness. Alrighty, let's do let's do our wrap-up thing.
Sure.
For those of you keeping track at home, we're at 55 minutes and 53 seconds. I wrote it down and all the various things. But yes, we'll be back over at Mark's next week. So make sure you're subscribed. The link is in the description, as well as the link to part 1 if you've not seen it yet, because oh my goodness, as frustrating as Bill is being in this debate, last week and this week are some of the most fun I've had with these. And I love doing these review shows with Mark, but it's been so fun. So do go back and check that out if you haven't seen it yet.
Oh, and everybody wish Ember a happy birthday if you weren't there for the stream, because Ember did not advertise it in any way, shape, or form. And
it's true, I'm bad at my
just
job.
found out. No. You're just very modest. That's all. Way too modest. Although I can understand why, considering trans people are being kicked off for absolutely nothing on this platform, which is making me very mad. But yeah, happy birthday, Ember. I'm glad you're coming once more around the sun with us.
It's I don't want to like jinx things, but it seems like we're already having a better year than the previous one. I realize that too is a very low bar, but
yes. Well,
it's a good start anyway.
All of you joined us for this short little arc of traveling around the sun. It's always good to have you. Always good to see you.
Yeah, life has its challenges, its rough moments, its dark days, its suffering. But even with all that in mind, not just ignoring it, setting it aside, and paying only attention to the radiant moments and the joys and the epiphanies and the euphorias of being in a community of people who care about each other and just like each other's presence and all of that stuff. Not even setting things aside, but in sum total, as a person who's very much struggled to continue to be here on a day-to-day basis for a long time, it's still good to be alive.
It is.
Now that's some philosophy.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you all so much for joining. Remember to subscribe to both channels, click all the buttons, shares, likes, leave comments, comment down below and tell me why I'm wrong about the Copenhagen interpretation. Even do a wrong answer thing. It'll be fun. I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. But thank you all so much for watching. Remember, I've got a show Monday. See, now I am going to promote stuff. Monday morning, David Fitzgerald and Karis Bukowski are going to be over to talk about their new book, clearly written by boys, A Woman's Guide to the Bible. I have many questions pertaining to the first half of the book is the very few women in the Bible. Each of their stories is told from their own perspective, and that's pretty neat. And it goes from there. So we're going to talk about that. I have questions that nobody else asks because I'm a very unique person, you may have noticed. And I may pop up from time to time. Who knows? I keep trying to get that intersex history video done. I promise I'm working on it, but I keep finding more history. And so it keeps taking me longer. It will come along eventually.
Do your best, Ember. That's all anyone can ask is just do your best. And it's rough. I just want to wish Nell lots of love. It's it must be rough, and I feel, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. My very first thought was to go to Canada, but it turns out you need to have like $30,000 in the bank before they'll let you in, like to stay anyway. I could visit, but whatever. That's a whole topic for another time. But the next time
I have petitioned my country and like joined a petition and sent a letter to the government to allow trans people from the United States refugee status. I don't think they're going to do it, but they bloody well should, because there are
It would be
people in
nice.
other countries who are under less threat that have refugee status. So yeah, that's my opinion.
It would be great if there were a refuge, even temporarily, until the US becomes sane again. Hopefully, maybe. I don't know, but we're all doing our best, and that's all we really can do. So, Mark, you have things happening next week too.
Do I?
I hear.
When?
You might. Traditionally, Mark does a show Tuesday evening. Is God the Asshole?
Yes.
Our
Yes.
Tuesday evening here in
No,
the
it's
US.
okay. I'll do it. I
Yeah.
don't expect you to do it. I was just being facetious.
Oh, I could do your whole thing.
I
We've been doing
barely
this
know
long
what's
enough.
I barely know what's going on in my YouTube stuff, so I don't know how you do it. I really wish I didn't have my brain sometimes. I really do, so I could remember stuff like that. But yeah, and Thursday nights Eastern time I do Fundamentalist Fails. I do have a debate coming up pretty soon on the Thought Experiment. Who thanks for showing up in the chat. Really appreciate it. And if you don't know, there is a new debate channel called the Thought Experiment. It's a sort of a sub channel to Skeptic Haven. So go and check them out. I might give a bit of a cheeky plug for the Thought Experiment. So that's on the 11th, I believe, with Brody, and we're doing the problem of evil. Is like evil a problem for the Christian God kind of thing, which should be really fascinating, really good. He seems like a really nice person, so it should be very, very interesting. And I hope you can join me. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yay. More fun and more goodies. And to answer the question you asked hours ago, Talk Like a Pirate Day is September 19th, which happens to be a Saturday, and it'll happen to be a time that we're over at your channel. So
fantastic.
We can I don't know, do something nautical, maybe. I don't know. But yes, join us next week.
I will
Mark's Place,
bust out my bandana.
The
bandana.
It sure. Somewhere I actually have one of those tricorn hats. It's been so long since I've seen it, though. I'll see if I can find it. No promises, but I'll see if I can find it.
But do you have a rainbow captain hat?
I do not.
I do.
I really should.
I do. For reasons unknown. I don't know why I have it. I don't even know where it came from.
My first thought was 1337 was too early for the pipe, but then I remembered. Yes.
Late speak, yeah. Oh, you're late already, Eris. You're later. Let's face it. Yeah. Wow, that brings back memories. The old late speak. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Alrighty. Thank you all so much for joining. Something outro in exit through the gift shop, astropride.com, and pick up your rainbow pirate flag and other assorted goodies. Ha! Nailed it.
Smooth.
Live long and prosper. We'll see you next time. Thanks to all our patrons and top-level members for July. Miranda, Tux, Ian Chen, Maya Adkison, Robin Webster, Karen Butcher, Ember Lynn, Margie, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, Lil of All Trades, Deviant Outcast, Thriver Scapegoat, Katie Bluebird, Noise Ending, Secular Feelinist, and Alira the Free. And you can add your name here next month by signing up at patreon.com/betterthanember, or by joining Emberships here on YouTube at the Cinder level, which also includes all the custom emojis, tons of member-exclusive content, and a bunch of other stuff. I deeply appreciate all the supporters who keep this channel going. Thank you so much. Because of you, we're building a wonderful community that I'm very proud of.